right, I'm here. Thank you everyone for being here. Sorry about the issues. If it's lagging or you can't hear me, let me know in the chat. I have no idea what's going on. My internet connection's fine. I don't know if it's Restream that I'm using or if it's OBS or what, but hopefully it works for everyone. But yeah, if people could just let me know in the chat if I start having buffering issues or audio issues. So otherwise, I'll get going. So, yeah, normally I don't do Sunday night videos, but there was a lot in the news that I figure wasn't huge stories that I'll be covering the rest of the week that I just felt like talking about tonight. So, yeah, I figured why not do a video. So, just real quick, for those of you who may have wondered what exactly was going on last night, normally Saturday nights we're going to be doing videos, me, Jerome Tech, SJG, and some other people. And it's going to be more geared towards having fun and not being as serious. They had some stuff come up and they backed out. So I had some friends and family come over and we decided to play this stupid online game, Jackbox game, so you can play with your cell phone. So Big Sky Crypto participated and some others. It's not something that I'm going to be doing often, but we were trying to get online players and I thought, hey, maybe some people on my YouTube channel would like to play. So it wasn't political or anything like that. But I hope people weren't discouraged like, oh, is this channel going to turn into something like that? I might start a secondary channel for that sort of stuff. But no, that's not going to be normal on this channel. Yeah, I thought it was a lot of fun too, Big Sky Crypto, who you did very well in a lot of the games we were playing. So, yeah, eventually I'll start a second channel. I'll let you all know if we're going to be doing stuff like that. But, yeah, that's it. So that's all that was going on with that. But I had a lot of people like, what the heck is this? What's going on? It's not going to be a big change or anything. One other thing for this video tonight, before I get on a roll here. If I have buffering issues, I won't play some of the videos I was going to for you. I'll just describe them and maybe provide a link. And I'm not going to be yelling. So I had a cold like 3 weeks ago, which came with the cough and etc., which then came with me losing my voice. And I still can't get my voice back. And my wife is convinced it's because I'm doing these videos yelling and screaming like a maniac, which she's probably right. So even if I get amped up, I'm going to try to approach things tonight in a very even-killed, non-screaming manner. So, might be a bit of a change for me. So, here's what I wanted to talk about today. There's a lot of videos that were on Twitter today from an Antifa rally that occurred in Portland. So, I'm going to be talking about that and primarily media reaction to it and the blue checkmark class reaction to it and some conversations I had on Twitter. Then I want to talk about a video Lindsey Graham had on Judge Jeanine's show where he claims that we're going to see, quote, half the people involved in the Russia hoax locked up. So I'll play that audio for you if I'm not having issues, and we'll discuss that. And then I thought we would talk about Vindman and Sondland, the Vindman brothers and Sondland being let go from their position and the media reaction towards that. So that's kind of where I wanted to go today. So let's start. The theme of this will be, as you could probably tell, the media. And it's a big thing that I think is worth talking about because the battle that we're involved in now, it's not a battle of, raising guns in the air or who could have the most people march on the street. All of that's tertiary. The battle at this point is an information battle. And whoever wins that information battle, their side will win in the end. And by this, there is a corrupt establishment. And they're seeking to have a total gatekeeper access to all information that's going out to people. And it's not just political information. They're trying to do this with your entertainment, with your sporting event, everything. The reason is, the less palpable your message is to the average person, the more you have to censor those that are pointing out how terrible your message is. Well, currently, right now, the establishment, and particularly the establishment Democrat Party, their message is so terrible that the only way the message could be bought by the average person is if all access to counter information is blocked. It's really that simple. So, in other words, if this sounds confusing, the crappier your message is, the tighter you have to squeeze your fist to censor anyone else that has a counter message to that. And that's what we're seeing right now. So it's on one, it's pessimistic because it shows the power that the establishment has and how low they're willing to try to go to be corrupt, to censor people that disagree with them. But on the other hand, there's an optimism behind this because it proves they're losing. I could have anyone on my show and have a debate. The reason is because I'm confident in my message. And so I don't have to say, oh, no, here's a certain ideology that I can't discuss. The only reason I'm afraid to discuss it is, one, if it's just so heinous and vulgar, that it's not going to fly on content. But the other would be if I don't have a good answer to it. And that's what you're seeing of the mainstream media in places like that. So that's what I want to focus on, and that's why it's important to call out. It's not just these events, and particularly when I get to the Antifa section, we'll talk about Antifa on its own. I mean, they're dangerous and they're terrible and they're a terrorist organization, but the real threat of Antifa is them being mainstreamed by the establishment media, academia, etc. That's the problem. And so it's up to us to point out the absurd nature of what the media is pushing, what the entertainment industry is pushing, what academia is pushing, etc., Silicon Valley, so that the average people can see these stories that are hidden. So, I don't have any articles linked to this, but I trust that it's been newsworthy all weekend, so I'm sure my great audience has seen this sort of information. And that is, we're talking about the Vindman brothers being transferred to a different department, and Ambassador Sondland being let go. So I want to real brief, excuse my voice again, I'll be drinking a lot during it. So I want to talk again about why it was important to leave these guys go. So let's start, as always, by giving the best case against my position. So the media case, and the case being made by the Democrats and people like Schiff and your Jake Tappers and your Rachel Maddows, etc., their case is this. Here were these noble patriots, the Vindmans, who, they care about their country so much. They've been in the military. One of them has awards. Lieutenant Colonel Vindman has a Purple Heart, I believe. And so they're these heroes to the country. And because they were really concerned about Donald Trump, they publicly spoke out about it and testified out against his actions. And now they're vindictively being fired. And this shows a president that's striking fear into the hearts of anyone who would be a potential whistleblower by firing them. And so this is basically the official narrative that your media class has, and all those that control the narrative. So I think it's important to talk about exactly what the Vindman brothers did, and Sondland for that matter, and why this warranted them being let go. Spoiler alert, my case is, it's not a problem that Trump let Vindman go. It's a problem that Trump didn't fire them immediately, along with hundreds of other holdovers from the Obama administration, in not just the State Department, but in the FBI, in the CIA, in the EPA, in the IRS, and pretty much every executive agency. Because Obama weaponized damn near every agency that he had control over. And there was a top-down approach to screwing over people that were in the political opposition. That's only magnified under Trump. And those people that stuck around feel that they have a patriotic duty to screw over their boss, the President of the United States. So just for starters, the President has the right and the authority to fire anyone for any reason in any executive agency, period. It is really that simple. Some of the absurd statements that you heard, particularly in the House impeachment case, had to do with people like Vindman and Fiona Hill and Yovanovitch and George Kent and Sondland. All of these people, if you listen to them with a close ear, you could hear them saying over and over, and this was repeated by the Democrats, the media, etc., all those groups I talked about. Trump was messing with established foreign policy. Do you understand the problem with that statement? The problem is Trump is the established foreign policy. We voted for Donald Trump. He is the rightfully elected president. He gets to set these foreign policy decisions. If a bunch of people that work under him don't like those decisions, then they could quietly walk out the door and say, I'm resigning. What they can't do is in secret try to struggle against those positions because they don't think that's what the establishment wants. That's exactly what the Vindmans did. That's exactly what Sondland did. That's what Yovanovitch did. That's what George Kent did. And so Trump not only is within his rights to fire these people, but also he would be insane not to. And this is part of the establishment game. Remember, the media is just mouthpieces for the establishment, which is corrupt. I don't think, look, we all have disagreements. There's depths and levels of things you could go in all these things. My show does not specialize in looking at things like, oh, we can see patterns of this from the 1400s and the Rothschilds and the Luciferians. I'll talk about whatever people want to talk about if they call in or want to talk to me. But I'm trying to speak to normal Americans, and I'm trying to show them the corruption with actual facts that we can see, and in a way that makes sense to someone who's not in-depth studied in a lot of this stuff. Because you have to understand, millions upon millions of people in this country, and the people that I personally know and love, that I think make this country work, the ones that work 9 to 5, they don't have time or energy to access all of this information like maybe me and you have. So I'm trying to explain that to my audience and to people around the country, whether they be on the left or the right, where I think the corruption lies, and showing proof of it. So I'm not saying, when I say that there's a corrupt establishment, that it's a bunch of people sitting around in robes, smoking cigars in candlelit rooms, drinking blood out of skulls. That's not what I'm saying. Could be, but that's not what I'm saying. I'm not trying to prove that. But what I am trying to prove is that part of the establishment, it doesn't have to be something that's so overtly nefarious. A lot of what it could be is just you have these career officials that are never elected, and there's this revolving door where they work in the executive branch, or they work as a lobbyist for a military-industrial complex company, or they go into the private sector and they're lobbyists. Then they get back into the government, etc. There's this revolving door. These people are there 30, 40, 50 years, sometimes more. It could be someone like Pelosi that's elected to office for years. Or it could be someone that's elected, serves a little bit of time, then they're on someone's cabinet, then they're lobbying for, defense contractors, etc. But this class, the ruling class, the DC class, and that's what DC is. That's why DC is one of the wealthiest areas in the country, because they corruptly suck all the money out of the productive areas of the country, and then they give themselves these meaningless, corrupt jobs that they're in for a lifetime. That's what the corruption is. Because a lot of people, the average person's like, look, I don't want to believe that they're these Luciferians or the Rothschilds or Skull and Bones. You don't have to believe any of that. I don't have to even talk about or prove any of that. Now, if you believe that stuff, that's fine. I'm willing to talk to you about it. I'm not saying I disbelieve it. I'm just saying I don't really go into that level of the analysis because to me, the corruption at the base level is bad enough to demand removal. I get you, Scarecrow. Yeah, and you're right, David. Yeah, I'm back, John. Don't worry, it'll be politics 98% of the time. Yeah, but you're right, David. It had a lot to do with optics. He couldn't fire Vindman during the impeachment, or it would have gave more evidence towards, the Democrats' case for impeachment. But anyways, the point is, these corrupt people, these corrupt officials, and it's best exemplified in the arrogance that they all showed in the impeachment hearings. So we've been told, ever since Trump got elected, like I've told you 1,000 times, why did I vote for Trump? Because I thought that Trump was seen as a potential outsider. I don't even have to prove that he is an outsider, just that he was a potential outsider, and the establishment will not take a chance on an outsider winning. So they were corrupt, and they outed themselves as corrupt. Donald Trump, the very fact that he was elected, has outed the establishment as corrupt more than any time in my lifetime. And that's a huge victory and reason alone to vote for Trump. That was the big reason. Now, we got to start holding the people criminally accountable, which hopefully we're getting to. But they said, there is no deep state. You're a conspiracy theorist, Rob, and everyone that believes like him. Now, there were articles printed out when Vindman was testifying. Thank God for the deep state. The deep state, that's Yovanovitch, that's Vindman. These are heroes. That's what they told us. So we went from 3 years to there is no deep state to, of course there are deep states. And they're good. Thank God there is. Do you see how that works? So that's what we're talking about. Now, why is this important? Well, think for a minute. You vote, regardless of who you voted for. Maybe you voted for Hillary Clinton. Maybe you voted for Trump. Maybe you're going to vote for Bernie in 2020. Whatever. It's irrelevant to this area of discussion. You presumably make choices based on who you think would be best on all sorts of manner of policies. Foreign policy, domestic policy, etc. The fact that we're just talking foreign policy here, but this is true in other agencies, not just the State Department. It's true of domestic agencies as well. The fact there is an establishment that's corrupt, a deep state, if you will, means that your vote doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. They will never allow someone in there that isn't going to go with, quote, what did they say in the impeachment hearing? Their established policy. Now look what happened when Trump tried to go just against one small area of it, giving this aid to the Ukraine and investigating corruption there. All of a sudden, the State Department officials come out of the woodwork to say, whoa, you can't do this. We're in charge. Not you, Trump. Us. That's not just telling Trump he's not in charge and his voice doesn't matter. That's telling you your voice doesn't matter. Did you vote for Vindman? Did you vote for Yovanovitch? Did you vote for Fiona Hill? Or any of the other people? Victor Sondland, did you vote for him? You didn't. Yet they think they make the policy, not the person you voted for. Now, this is why I say this is just the very base level of that. That's before getting into any corruption. You can sit here and say, oh, but they know best. They don't, as we could get to here further. But just at the very base level, this is why I tell people all the time. Because I got friends that are like, hey, Rob, I like your thoughts on socialism. I like your thoughts on the debate. But I'm tired of hearing you talk about the FBI being corrupt or the Democrats being corrupt or impeachment being corrupt. You know, why don't you do a show on climate change? Well, I have done a show on climate change, and I'll do more. But I say this over and over. Let's say I'm talking to a friend of mine on the left. You're really concerned about climate change. I disagree. I think that it's a propaganda tool being used to consolidate power from middle America and the poorer people. But fine, that's your issue. Guess what? Your issue doesn't matter unless the unelected bureaucrats in the deep state think your agenda matters, think your issue matters. And so whatever your issue is, your first criteria, regardless if you like Trump, if you hate Trump, if you're a Democrat, if you're a Republican, if you're an independent, the very first thing we need to stop is the fact that your elected officials don't have anything to say at all. The show's being ran by people behind the scenes that your voice doesn't matter to. Whether it be lobbyists, whether it be officials, unelected bureaucrats, wealthy billionaires that are running the show, the globalist elite. They control the levers of power. They also, not just in government, but they can control the public narrative, as I talk about a lot. Now, that seems like a long-winded explanation to get to the firing of the Vindmans. They represent that. They're a blatant example of that. For every Vindman we see, there's 10 we don't, that are just as corrupt as them, operating behind the scenes, leaking to the media when it's convenient, doing all sorts of things. So let's talk specifically of what Vindman did, at least Lieutenant Colonel. First, his arrogance is so infuriating, and this is something I talk about a lot, which I've been hitting on recently, is the idea of authenticity, right? Like or hate Trump, he is who he is. Trump on the golf course is basically the same as Trump the president, is basically the same as Trump the guy at the campaign rally. You might not like that, but at least that's who he is. Compare that to someone like Hillary Clinton. When she's talking to our deep state backers, she's one person. When she's talking to, remember she did that interview with the black radio show? What do you keep in your purse? Hot sauce, y'all. Everywhere she goes, she changes her accent to try to fit in. She pretends that she's like, just some average Joe Schmo. Look at Elizabeth Warren. Look at Nancy Pelosi, right? Pelosi's going to tell you how somber everything is. She doesn't, remember she went in that big lecture? I'm a Catholic. I don't hate anyone. I don't do acts of hate. I can't bring myself to hate ISIS or MS-13. Remember? They say that all the time. This is a somber moment. Cut to her giddily laughing, trying to, ripping the State of the Union, clapping like this at Trump and the other one. It's that inauthenticity that infuriates you. Vindman had that in spades. Remember when one of the congressmen were talking to him? And they were like, Mr. Vindman. He's like, Lieutenant Colonel Vindman. It's like, yeah, okay. Isn't it funny how the left, when it comes to titles and things like that, and again, not everyone on the left, but the establishment left, right? Trump insults a judge. How dare you? You can't insult a judge. How dare you? Yet Kavanaugh, they'll call a rapist and say that his authority doesn't matter. Or they'll call Trump any sort of vile thing. Or they'll call any congressperson they don't like any sort of vile thing. But if Trump insults a judge, oh my God, you can't do that. Nancy ripping up, oh, that's perfectly fine. But if Trump didn't shake her hand, oh my God. By the way, if you look at that clip, when Nancy reaches her hand out to shake Trump's hand, Trump's already turning around. And Pence didn't shake his hand, so I don't even think it was an intentional snub. Oh, John, you're talking about Wuhan. Maybe I'll get to that tomorrow. I'm looking into it to have a more educated opinion, but so we got rid of the what else did Vindman do? I mean, Vindman specifically admitted in his own words that he thought that Trump wanted the Ukrainian president to investigate possible corruption at Burisma with the Bidens, possible Ukrainian election interference, and he privately told his counterparts in Ukraine to disregard Trump. That's fireable, period. Trump is Vindman's boss. Vindman's telling another country, don't listen to the president, listen to me. You're fired. Now, granted, as David correctly says, it was for optics that Trump didn't fire him sooner. Same with Sondland. Now remember, the left hated Sondland. They thought Sondland was Trump's, toady with Giuliani. The Democrats went after Sondland the entire impeachment hearing until Sondland testified and said, oh yeah, I thought it was a quid pro quo. Then Sondland's a big hero. Just like they hated Scaramucci. Then they loved Scaramucci when he turned on Trump. They hated Cohen. Then they loved Cohen when he turned on Trump. They hated Romney. Now they love Romney that he turned on Trump. I mean, this is what I'm talking about, authenticity. They're disgusting. They have no standards. They have no morals whatsoever. Yeah, Yevgeny, or however you pronounce it, Lieutenant Colonel Vindman's brother, I mean, he's involved in all sorts. He was connected to the whistleblower. Both the Vindmans were. It's widely believed, and there's solid proof, that Vindman was the source that told the whistleblower about the call. So that's leaking classified information of a call to someone who wasn't involved on the call. The brother was someone who had formerly worked with attorneys that was involved with the Bidens and their actions in the Ukraine, just like Charamella, the whistleblower. He was closely working with Biden in the Ukraine as well. So both the Vindmans, the whistleblower, Biden, Obama, they all had a vested interest, as did George Kent, as did Yovanovitch, as did Fiona Hill. All of them had a vested interest in not wanting Trump to investigate the corruption in the Ukraine. If you want to know why, and you're someone who has no life, check out the last live stream I did. I think it's Normal America number 10. 4 hours I go, and I explain to you step by step by step by providing actual evidence of the corruption that went on with Ukraine. When it comes to the State Department officials, I show you how George Kent, who was the State Department official who was the very first to testify in the open against Trump, admitted that he and other State Department officials pressured Ukrainian prosecutors to not investigate Ukrainians that were committing criminal offenses that were allies with Obama. Two of which, Sergei Lyshenko and Artem Sitnik, who was the head of basically the Ukrainian FBI, publicly admitted to interfering in the 2016 election to help Democrats. So Vindman and his brother, they're testifying, and all the other people in the State Department, their opinion is, we don't want Trump investigating this corruption. Yet part of what they'll find is that Vindman and all these people, they themselves were involved in the cover-up to cover up the fact that Ukraine's interfered in the election. That would be like if I work at the police department and Internal Affairs wants to investigate my boss, but I know I committed crimes with my boss, so I'm called as the witness that says, nah, I think it's corrupt to want to investigate my boss. That's exactly what Vindman's doing, and his brother. They know the corruption that occurred during the Obama administration, and so they're claiming that investigating the corruption is itself an act of corruption. Does this sound familiar? What's the very first thing I told you on day one of the impeachment? What did I say? I said it on my channel. I said it on the Patriot panel. I've said it on the Patriot Hour show. Over and over I said this. This is as simple as I can make it. The impeachment was about criminalizing, investigating the corruption of the establishment, particularly the past administration. In other words, you had Trump, you play your games, you talk about the wall, we'll fight you on that. You talk about this, we'll fight you on that. You talk about this, we'll fight you on that. But if you start to investigate our corruption, then we're going to take the gloves off. That's the lesson being said. So I hope Trump's victory speech to me sent a signal. It's time for us to go on offense. Not just Trump. Make no mistake about it. Regardless if you like Trump or not. This isn't Trump winning. It is. But that's unimportant, believe it or not. It's the country winning. It's you, the regular person who's not part of the establishment, winning. That's who wins in this. That's who wins if we get to the bottom of this corruption. So I just thought it was funny. And for the media to flip out, right? Oh, Trump, he fired these people. Where was the media when Barack Obama prosecuted, not just fired, prosecuted more whistleblowers than every other president before him combined? Where was the media? Do you see, again, we talk about double standards a lot in this show. Equal application of the law, equal application of outrage. Remember, this is done over and over. Every single thing. Every crime they accuse Trump of or Trump's team of, every outrage they accuse Trump of or his team of. Every single time we can see Democrats or the intel agencies doing worse and it being deemed okay by the establishment. So here we have, right, like, let me give you a quick example. Trump complaining about the Mueller investigation, or Trump wanting to use executive privilege and go to the courts before he hands over subpoenaed material. They say that's impeachable and a crime, obstruction. But Hillary Clinton, instead of going to the courts, just straight up destroying that evidence that was subpoenaed, that's okay. So another way to put this is, according to the Democrats, instead of going to the courts, if Trump would have just destroyed the evidence they requested, the Democrats would have said, oh yeah, fair enough, that's how it's done. Because that's what they said was okay when Hillary did it. Well, here we see the same thing. Trump firing a couple people that publicly admitted in front of the nation, yes, I intentionally subverted the president. I told leaders of other countries not to listen to the president and instead listen to me. They say the firing of that person is evidence of corruption. But Obama, when actual, not fake, but actual whistleblowers came out and spoke about the corruption of his administration, actually throwing these people in jail and locking, throwing away the key, they had no problem with that. So again, apparently, according to the media and the Democrats, instead of firing Vindman, if Trump would have just said, okay, you're under arrest, and basically just never heard anything about it. How many whistleblowers being arrested? How many of those stories do you remember the media talking about under Obama? One, maybe? There were dozens. But if Obama would have just fired, instead of arresting those whistleblowers, if he would have just fired them, the media would have been outraged. Then, oh my God, Obama's firing whistleblowers? But when Trump fires a non-whistleblower, instead of jailing him, right, I agree, Mike. Yeah, and I agree with you, Michael. The idea is the average person, you need to spell out to them how this is corrupt. And this is what I've been saying my channel's about the whole time, right? I say this sincerely, regardless of if you believe me or not, but I hope you believe me. If people connected to Trump, if it became public that they committed crimes, or Trump himself, they should be held accountable for those crimes. I truly believe that. Heck, I think even Trump would say that. I'm not saying just because I'm cheering for a side or cheering for a politician that I'll overlook the crimes they committed. I'm not saying that. But I haven't seen any evidence of crimes, and I've seen a double standard. All I want is for the law to be applied equally. And it never is. It's always the exact opposite. It's always hypocrisy from the establishment. Everything. Whether it be on the legal level, when they're accusing you of a crime, they're doing the exact same crime. A moral level, they accuse you of racism while they themselves are racist. They accuse you of hurting the environment because the car you're making payments on, trying to get to work every day, yet they fly in private jets. They accuse you of being, bigoted for not wanting open borders while they live in gated communities. I mean, it's every issue. And that's what the American people, the average person, could wrap their brains around. These establishment people, this DC class, they think they're better than you. Most of them have never worked a real job in their life. They think they're entitled to the wealth that you create working with your hands or doing whatever you do. You don't have to be that's the people I know that work with their hands. But whatever your job is, they think you suck. They think your voice doesn't matter. They think they know better than you. And you need to just shut your mouth, and you're a pain if you complain about it. And they'll employ double standards and propaganda and legal threats and straight up violence. It doesn't matter. They'll employ all of that to shut you up. That's the type of issues you show the average American person. To where they wake up and say, oh, I get it. If you start to try to explain things like really in-depth, confusing things in the nature of some of these things. For example, I find a lot of the specific details on the supposed Russia hack of the DNC server to be very interesting, such as Bill Binney, formerly of the NSA, and some other former Intel officials coming out and saying that the download speeds were actually impossible to get from Russia on the hack, and so it looks like it was actually directly downloaded onto a USB drive directly in the server. But that's hard for an average person to wrap their head around. Not because the average person's dumb, but because they're working 9 to 5. They're not going to sit down and read the scientific evidence left and right. That's hard. It's hard for me to understand, to be honest. But you want to know what's easy to understand for the American people? Hey, they have this server, right? Yeah, I heard about that server. You heard the Russians hacked it? Yep, I heard that. Okay, so you know that the Democrats said it was like an act of war and like a huge thing? It possibly stole the election. Yep, I know that. Okay, would it surprise you to learn that the FBI never looked at that server? Because when they went, even as Comey admitted, yeah, we wanted to look at the physical servers, the Democrats said, no, you can't look at it. Now, I'm telling you right now, 8 out of 10 average people are like, wait, what? There's one piece of physical evidence? It'd be like if I said, hey, me, Rob Noor, I call the police. I say, hey, my neighbors broke into my house. I hate my neighbors. They broke into my house. In reality, I really like my neighbors, but just hypothetically. I hate my neighbors. They broke into my house and they stole a bunch of valuables. And the cops are like, oh my God. Okay, we'll come in. Show us around your house. Show us what they stole. No, you can't come in and look at the evidence. But I hired an independent investigator and here's his report on what they stole. The police would laugh you out. They'd be like, okay, if you're not going to leave us look at the evidence, see you later, pal. You're on your own. But in this case, the most powerful investigative agency in the history of the world was like, oh, we're sorry, DNC. Yes, please. I've talked about this since the incident happened with very smart people on the left, people, some of which are my friends. Give me one good reason, one, why the DNC would say, yeah, you can't look at this server. And second, why the FBI wouldn't insist, even if the DNC didn't want them. There's not one good reason. There's only two reasons. One is that it was a lie, and the DNC hired CrowdStrike to fabricate this lie, fabricate the evidence to give to the FBI. And so the entire narrative of the Russian hack is garbage. Or second is, okay, maybe Russia did this, but there was other incriminating evidence on the server of illegal or corrupt things the DNC had been doing that they didn't want the FBI to see. So they had CrowdStrike erase that incriminating DNC stuff to give to the FBI. That's it. That's the only two possible. I've asked people, no one could come up with it. Well, maybe they just didn't feel like it. Didn't feel like it. It's the single most important piece of evidence in the entire case, in what they're calling the biggest theft of U.S. democracy in the history of the country. And they just didn't feel like handing the evidence over? Heck, some of the Democrats talked about going to war. They said it was an act of war for Russia to do this. Talking about going to war with a nuclear-armed superpower. But they couldn't look at the most important piece of evidence. Sorry, John, I'm missing a lot of the comments here. Yeah, these gun confiscation bills are crazy. So yeah, it's that type of stuff that you can tell the average person. So good for Trump for getting the Vindmans out. I spent more time on that than I wanted, but that's what I do, I guess. Without someone to rein me in, I just rant. All right. So for those of you that don't know, where the heck am I? Antifa in Portland again, running amok today and yesterday. I think primarily today. And look, it's really important to talk about Antifa and what's going on here. If you've heard me talk about Antifa before, they are a terrorist organization. And they're, even if their death toll's not so high right now, it will be. And I'll explain when that will occur. But it's not even just that that's the real danger of Antifa. The real danger is the celebrating and normalizing of Antifa by people in the establishment. Make no mistake about it. When Antifa, if you're in Antifa right now and for some reason you're listening to this show, as soon as your usefulness is outweighed by your burdenness, just like that Bernie supporter said, Kyle Jarrett, right? You'll be the first to line up on the wall. That's exactly true. They will throw you under the bus in a moment's notice, just like Bernie and his supporters, of course. But right now, they're useful tools of the establishment. And so they're allowed to operate with near impunity over and over. Now, think of how this works. You always hear, again, let me start with the argument from the other side. And I'll try to put, as usual, I'll try my best to make their argument as strong as possible. So their argument would be, well, how many deaths have there been from Antifa? If you go to the FBI numbers, it shows that right-wing hate groups are responsible for more deaths than Antifa. So why aren't we focused on them? Okay, so there's a lot to unpack there, but fine. If that's the tact you want to take. The first thing I'll say is, define right-wing to me. So they'll say, for example, remember the Christchurch shooter? And then immediately after the Christchurch shooter, you had, it was Dallas, right? A guy in Dallas. And the guy in Dallas said, I'm modeling my shooting after the Christchurch shooter. And the Christchurch shooter had a manifesto. Right. They're similar to the Weather Underground. Antifa is. So, anyways, if you read the Christchurch shooter's manifesto and you have any sorts of cultural understanding, you would understand, as disgusting as this is to say, he was a troll. I mean, he said things like he was inspired by Spyro the Dragon, the video game Spyro the Dragon. If you don't play video games, you might not know this. Spyro the Dragon is basically the equivalent of Super Mario. It's a cartoon dragon, fights, fluffy cartoon animals. It's not like a super violent game. It's not, it's like Mario. You're bouncing on enemies' heads and stuff. He's got horns he pokes the enemies with. But it's not like Grand Theft Auto or something. Why would a childish video game sponsor someone? And if you really read between the lines, what the Christchurch shooter said was, I'm basically doing this because I'm trolling. Like, he's like the Joker in The Dark Knight, where he just wants the world to burn. He's like, I know if I do this and I say certain things, it will trigger the left and the right to fight each other, which is what he wants, which will trigger gun confiscation. Isn't it funny? Anytime that someone shoots someone and they seem to advocate a right-wing issue, we're then told to advocate that right-wing issue is suddenly anathema. Oh, you can't do it. But when the Christchurch shooter says, I'm doing this because I know it will usher in gun confiscation, and then we see gun confiscation bills popping up everywhere, no one says, excuse me, Governor Northam, isn't this exactly what the Christchurch shooter said? Do you identify with the Christ? No one says that, right? But they'll ask you, oh, didn't the Christchurch shooter say that he was concerned about illegal immigration? That's somehow, no, now you're bad for being concerned about that. But anyways, so it was a troll job. But if we take it literally, yeah, I've no doubt that there was a racial motivation between both the Christchurch and the Dallas shooter. Why is that considered right-wing? I'll never understand that. If we really look objectively and you take yourself out of the right-left paradigm and you're just an alien that landed here and you look at the United States and it's like, okay, here's this group that identifies with the left, kind of symbolized by the Democratic Party. Here's this group that identifies with the right, kind of symbolized by the Republican Party. Which party focuses more on race and racial identitarianism? Which group would you say that is? I think without a doubt it's the left. Yet somehow, racial supremacism or racial, like that's considered a right-wing viewpoint. Why is that? Now, I don't blame the left either. My argument the whole time is every ideology will have nuts, and you shouldn't paint the average person in that ideology with the crazy extremists. On both sides, you shouldn't. I don't think that the guy that shot Steve Scalise represents my friends that want to vote for Bernie Sanders. I don't. They might be crazy in different ways, but they're not a threat to go shoot people. So I'm not going to smear them. But the establishment and the left, right, they don't return that favor. Oh, some guy ran over Heather Heyer in Charlottesville. That means anyone who doesn't want the statues removed is a crazy Nazi that wants to run over people. But when this guy tries to run over Trump supporters in a Trump registration here this weekend, you see the media covering that story? 6 people were injured as a man in a van tried to kill Trump supporters registering voters. Where's that story? If he would have killed the people, would they have said, would the media have painted everyone connected in the left like they did everyone connected to the right with Charlottesville? Do you think it would have been the same? I don't. So there's the question about, so what do you mean right-wing violence anyways? And even if I give you that then, okay, racial identitarianism is somehow right-wing. Is climate change a right-wing idea? Climate change zealotry? Because both the Dallas and the Christchurch shooter, both of them said what? One of the reasons they were doing it was because they thought climate change would wipe us all out and we needed population control. So that's terrorism in the name of climate change. Now, how is that smeared as a right-wing cause? So do you see how the establishment and the left smears, they use definitions and they use language to try to smear entire groups. So the official FBI statistics will list Christchurch, even though that was New Zealand, but the Dallas person that he inspired, that'll be right-wing terrorism, even though one of the biggest motivations they gave was climate change, which is a left-wing ideology. That won't matter. That will be whitewashed in history. We just focus on the, quote, right-wing problems he had. Then when you delve further into the FBI statistics, they list things like white supremacist gangs in prison. So white gangs in prison that kill people or commit crimes, they consider that right-wing crimes or terrorism, depending on what they are. But they don't do that with black gangs or Hispanic gangs or, Asian gangs, etc. It's only white gangs that's considered right-wing. Why is that? And then they'll do things like they'll arbitrarily use specific numbers for like mass shootings or terrorism. So they'll say a mass shooting's like, I think now they define it as anyone over 3 people shot in one incident. We can see the bulk of those things, if you go by the definition, are inner city crime, gang violence. But that's not considered left-wing violence. Then they'll talk about, well, violence that's motivated by politics. Well, what is that? Like, the simple way to look at like hate crime legislation. I mean, and you've heard me, I'm not someone who's into racial identitarianism. I'm not someone that's like, woe is me as a white person. I'm not saying any of that. But look at how they identify hate crimes. Anytime a white person attacks someone of color, there's a good chance it's going to be heavily scrutinized as a possible hate crime. But you could have blatant examples of mobs of people of one skin color beating up a white person, and they'll always find a reason, it seems, to say, well, it wasn't a hate crime. You get beat up for being white and wearing a MAGA hat, that's not a hate crime. Well, they do that same sort of gerrymandering with the truth when it comes to definitions of domestic terrorism. That's all I'm trying to say. Now, Antifa, here's why they're more dangerous. It's because of institutional power. And it's funny because this is an argument that's made on the left all the time. So if you really get into a debate with like a critical race theorist or one of these people that are the permanent victim class, identity politics, cultural Marxism pushers, they'll make a claim to you like this. Well, it's impossible for black people to be racist because racism is prejudice plus power. And you need both of those things. So a black person could be prejudiced towards a white person, but they can't be racist towards the white person because they don't have power. Well, what if they're Barack Obama? No, that's different. We're talking on average, institutional systemic power, and black people don't have it. Well, that's garbage. Clearly, if you have bigotry towards someone based on race, that's racism. You could be black and be racist. You could be white and be racist. You could be Asian and be racist, and so on and so forth. And anyone who seeks to make excuses and says, no, it's only racism if people of a certain race do it, are in fact engaging in, are you ready for this? Racism. If you say certain offenses can only be committed by certain people based on the color of their skin, that's a prejudicial attitude based on race. The definition of that is racism. Right, Julie Coles. That's the point I was making. Black identitarians are considered left-wing, but white identitarians are considered right-wing. I feel like the racial identitarians are their own group. You could have right-wing beliefs and be a racial identitarian, or you could have left-wing beliefs and be a racial identitarian. But your race and being an identitarian doesn't make you left or right. It's nonsense. Beaches on Periscope says, how dare I speak the truth? Clearly I'm a racist. Yeah, I know. The charge means nothing to me. And if someone calls you a racist, look, you know yourself. The people around you know you. If you know you're not racist, then you treat that charge with the contempt it deserves. How dare you? I used to do this in debate all the time. You'd get these people that start calling you racist. I'd be like, look, I quit. I'm walking out. You want to have a serious conversation about race, fine. But I'm not going to let you call me a racist because I'm not a racist. You want to have a talk? You want to be civilized? No problem. Win or lose, I'm in for that call. But I'm not going to let you insult me and say things about my character that are just blatantly untrue. And once you take that sting, that it's kind of this gravitas that they have. It's righteous indignation they feel. Once you take that out, there's not much there. There's not a lot of facts. It's more feelings than facts. So if you could take that passion away, it's just... So why is it then... So let's do an experiment when it comes to Antifa. Now, I'm not going to show you all the clips, but I believe most of you will believe me. And if there's a lot of debate that I'm not telling the truth, I could do a video at a later date. But I've already done some. There were many people, both in the Democratic Party, in academia, in the mainstream media, in Silicon Valley and other places that either excused or gave support to Antifa at one time or another. Chris Cuomo, Don Lemon comes to mind. You had academics, that you'd see on Tucker Carlson's show all the time. Professors who were like, yes, I'm a proud supporter of Antifa. You had the By Any Means Necessary lady that was a professor out towards Berkeley. You had politicians give them lip service, both after Charlottesville and at other times. Show me one prominent mainstream media person, one prominent Republican that was out there praising the KKK in the last 5 years. Or neo-Nazis. Now, they tried to claim Trump was, but as I've showed you over and over, that's a lie. Trump gave 3 speeches after Charlottesville, and every single one he condemned racial hatred, specifically outlining the names KKK neo-Nazis in 2 of the 3 speeches. So it was just a lie. But go ahead, show me the evidence. I can show you evidence after evidence of mainstream people with power defending Antifa. And that's just the ones that do it publicly. For every one person that's willing to say that publicly, there's 10 people in the establishment that agree with them, but just aren't saying it on television. Just like Black Lives Matter. They can threaten to kill cops over and over and over, and they'll be praised by all of these people in the establishment. Show me one white identitarian movement that chanted for dead cops that was praised by anyone in the mainstream. We all condemn it. Hey, Dib, thanks for being here, man. I am doing well tonight, Louis. Of course, the KKK was a Democratic Party. Let me tell you a story. I live in rural Pennsylvania. I remember when I was young, we were going to visit my grandpa in a town across the way. It's also a rural town. And there was the traffic was stopped. And there was a permitted KKK rally at the courthouse steps. And there were like 6 people. Now, this town, I know because I grew up around there my whole life. I'm guessing is 99% white, 98% white. Not a big town. I think there were 6 KKK members in robes that were handing out flyers on the courthouse steps. In this small town, that the only thing they've ever protested was probably being thrown out of the bar. There's a group of like 70 people across the street yelling at the KKK. And supposedly, like CNN says, 10-tooth, redneck, rubes trying to keep the brown horde out. That's what CNN and the Democrats think of small towns like this. Yet here they were, all these white people screaming at the KKK. Why is that? Why do you think that is? Because everybody knows they're dumb. Everyone knows that amount of racial supremacy is ridiculous. Yes, there are a handful of bigots, but it's nowhere near the numbers that you're led to believe by the establishment. That want to demonize, not only demonize and smear every average person that's conservative or in flyover country as a racist, but let's be honest, seek to create the theory that all white people are oppressors. What did Bernie say in the debate the other night? This country is racist from top to bottom. Everyone is a racist. Every institution is racist. That's what they believe. That's part of the culture of Marxism. You're white, you're an oppressor. And they say it all the time. They say how big white supremacy is. And then if you say, well, I'm clearly not a white supremacist, they say, well, subconsciously you hold racial animus, right? That's what they say. You don't even know that you're a racist. That's the arguments they make. That's how insane. And it's just not true. Tucker Carlson said, it's a myth. Now, Media Matters is after him every day. Oh, he's a white supremacist. Tucker's a white supremacist. Clearly, white supremacy is not a myth. Here's one. Here's David Duke. Well, Tucker wasn't saying that it's a myth as in there are no white supremacists. Tucker Carlson was saying it's a myth that they're a significant threat to our country. They're so not a threat. What was the name of that guy? Representative King, Steve King, a Republican, who came out and said, I don't see what the problem with the word white nationalism is. He was censured by the Republicans. The Republicans are finding people to primary this guy. They're doing everything they can to get this guy out of the party for just saying, I don't see what the problem with white nationalism is. Now, he is stupid. There is a problem with white nationalism. There's not a problem with being white and being a nationalist, but white nationalism implies You want a country of white people. That's what the term means. And I am against that heavily. But that's the rumor that's being put through. Look at the story with the Covington kids. I've told you this over and over. The group that was assaulting them was called Black Hebrew Israelites. I'd never heard of the group. I started to look it up. I started to talk to my friends. I started to read stories. They're everywhere. They're in cities all over this country. On the street corners, handing out literature, yelling about gay people, yelling about women, yelling about white people, yelling about Jews. All sorts of homophobic, racial hatred, violent rhetoric. And they're allowed. No one bats an eye. They're just a regular fixture on the street corner. Now replace the Black Hebrew Israelites with neo-Nazis or with the KKK. You really think it'd be a non-story? CNN would be there with the camera 24/7. There'd be a mob of people chasing away the white supremacist. As there probably should be. Now what, if you're really, now we started on this segment talking about the idea of race. You can only be racism if you have prejudice and power. Now that's garbage. But the small nugget of truth in there is this, that when a racist can really become threatening is when they have access to power. Now that could be on an individual level. Some buffoon that wants to yell at me for being white on college campus in a debate tournament, whatever. It's not a threat to me. But if they grab a weapon and attack me, now it's a big deal. Their words don't harm me, in other words, but when they use power in the form of physical violence, then it's troubling. Similarly, if we're not talking about physical violence, but political power, then it becomes problematic. And when the two are combined is when something really becomes dangerous. And that is exactly what Antifa is. Antifa isn't particularly dangerous and a threat because they're willing to use violence. That's bad, and they should be dealt with by authorities for that alone. But what really makes them troubling is the fact that they have support in the establishment. And that is unique to any right-wing terrorist group in this country. Name me one right-wing terrorist group that has support in the establishment. Name me one. You see Rush Limbaugh or Sean Hannity or Tucker Carlson or Greg Gutfeld or, the Wall Street Journal, any media group that you could remotely consider right-wing. Do you see them praising neo-Nazis? You see them praising the KKK or other groups that are considered right-wing terror groups? I don't see that. And if I do see it, I'll call it out. I have no love for them either, those racial identitarian groups. But I can show you people in positions of power, whether it be political power or cultural power, that defend Antifa. As a result, it allows real people, the media, it allows mayors, it allows the police, etc., to allow Antifa to operate with some sort of authority. So, in that note, right, I want to show you some stuff about Portland today. I think it was today or yesterday, but I'm pretty sure today. I apologize to everyone. I'm going to do something that's going to harm me. I have to shrink my face here real quick. I'm sorry. I know I'm so beautiful. No. Here's Andy No on Twitter. Andy No is the guy that got beat up by Antifa, had the milkshakes thrown at him, got beat up. All right. So we're going to watch this video. Here's what's happening in this video. A journalist is covering Antifa and starts to get chased. The journalist then runs to the police precinct, and the police tell this journalist, yeah, we're not going to help you. So let's see if you all can see this and hear this. Wait a second, I don't think the audio is playing, so let me retry here. I'll restart the video for you here, though. I'll restart it for you. I apologize.
Yes, sir.
You run it over there.
Hey, stay the fuck back, motherfuckers. Fuck off.
Stupid buffering.
Yes, sir.
You run it over there, and we're not going to come out and save you, so you got to come up with a...
I see it on that side of the street. I didn't even cross.
You got to come up with a different plan, like maybe go somewhere else.
All right.
We're not going to run out here and save you. You know
No, I wasn't, but I came to you guys. I didn't even know there was anybody out here. But I just stood there. They come out with pepper spray.
I'm just telling you that ain't going to happen again, so you got to go probably find something else, okay?
Okay.
We're not going to be home base for you.
I'm going to leave.
Now, did you see what was going on there? Sorry, that was buffering. And it's still screwing with me. I don't know what's going on. There we go. Did you all see what happened? He was filming Antifa, wasn't even saying anything to him. They charged him. He ran to where the police were, and the police tell him, hey, don't bother running to us. We're not going to help you. Don't do that again. Do you realize the insanity of this? Now, imagine that take political ideology out of it. A bunch of masked goons come into your city. They're harassing people. They're vandalizing property. They're shutting down streets. Someone decides to just film them. The masked goons attack the person that's filming them, and the police say, hey, guy that was filming them, that's your fault for filming them. We're not going to help you. You should know better than to film them. Now, let's see. I'm going to show you my interactions on Twitter with just a couple people to show you how insane and the real danger of Antifa. This person says, police are totally in the right here. Don't poke a hornet's nest and not expect to get stung. They have better things to do than play bodyguard for a handful of agitators. You see, it's not the actual masked goons that are the agitators. If you have a problem with masked thugs running your city, you're an agitator. I say, I bet you'd be singing a different tune if a journalist covering the KKK rally were mobbed by them. I love how how the tolerant left says it's everyone else's fault for not bowing down to their violent mobs. So you remember the night before Heather Heyer was killed in Charlottesville where you had all of the tiki torch, right? You remember this? Terrible. All of these like white supremacists or white nationalists holding tiki torches, yelling. And they went, this is the story, this is what happened. They went to the monument downtown, and a bunch of people from a university, a handful of them, that had Vice News embedded with them, surrounded themselves around the statue because they knew that's where this gathering was going to occur. And then, predictably, because they were yelling back and forth, the white nationalists got in a fight with these people. And the entire establishment story was things like this. The act of surrounding these people was violence. These people are heroes for sticking up against these evil bigots that wanted to use violence. Do you see how the narrative immediately shifts? Did you see one person? Could you imagine Mr. Westerland here saying, oh, well, yeah, the police should have helped those people that were around the statue. They were agitating the white supremacists. Now, okay, that's just some random Joe Schmo, right? Let's see what a blue check marker has to say. Here you see another journalist, a local Portland guy. He gets sprayed with silly string. Then you can see he's getting poked with umbrellas. And then they start macing him and pushing him and trying to take his material. See that? See, that starts off harmless. They're spraying you with pepper spray or with silly string. Then they start poking you a little. Then they start mobbing you, trying to take your equipment. Right? Remember, the same left that says surrounding someone is violence. No problem when Antifa does it. None. Now you have all these other journalists. There, he gets maced in the face right there. Right? So Andy No says, video recorded by Antifa writer Shane Burley shows mob harassing, assaulting, and pepper spraying local citizen journalist Brandon Brown. Brown was attacked and robbed by Antifa militants for recording them in Olympia, Washington in December. Okay? Oh, I was blocked. That's funny. So you can't see what I was responding to. But this was a blue check-marked journalist in Portland. And, man, that's a bummer that they blocked me, so you can't see what they said. But if I can remember, they said something like this. Oh, it serves this guy right. That's what he gets for agitating, blah, blah, blah. And so I just said, so I guess if a Trump crowd beats up Jim Acosta or anyone from CNN, you'll laugh and say he had it coming, right? And his response was, Jim Acosta's a real journalist, not just some professional agitator trying to get beat up for clicks. And so then I said, the arrogance and hypocrisy of you people never ceases to amaze me. When you find yourself celebrating violence against reporters based on racism, that was a mistype, based on their political leanings, you may want to have a long look in the mirror to see what you've become. So it's a bummer. I didn't check to see that guy deleted. Of course, a real journalist had to block me. I didn't even say anything mean there, right? Like, that is the attitude they have, though. Do you understand that? First off, the idea that Jim Acosta is a real journalist may be the funniest thing I've heard all week. But second, this is what always happens. It's more of what I was talking about in the first segment, the double standard. You could take the exact same situation. 10 people in masks surrounds one person who was filming them, beats the crap out of him. Let me reset the scenario. 10 people that have masks on. They surround a person filming them and beat the crap out of them, mace them, take their camera, etc. If you can say, well, depending on who those 10 people are and who that one person was, sometimes it's okay, you're a hypocrite. That's it. It's that simple. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. Now we see that this is almost exclusively coming from the establishment and from the left. Jim Acosta could go in to his network. I've played you the clips on Don Lemon's show particularly. Had Rick Wilson on. Called all Trump supporters 10-toothed rubes. Said that they want to support keeping the brown horde out of the country. Said that they can't find Ukraine on a map. They don't know how to read and write. Right? That's CNN. So when one of their reporters goes out to a Trump rally, and the Trump supporters, they're not surrounding him. They're not macing Acosta or CNN. They're not stealing their camera. They're not pushing them. They're not beating them and surrounding them. That's not happening. They just flip them off and yell, screw you, CNN, fake news. The media's aghast, not just CNN, all the media. Oh my God, can you believe that? Oh, Trump's so violent. His people are so violent. But when the left wing actually beats up journalists, they say, well, those journalists had it coming. It's surreal. Now listen, it's not just me. It's realizing this. Go check out the YouTube channel of Tim Pool. Tim Pool is fantastic. He has 2 YouTube channels. You should check them both out. Tim Pool, by all accounts, is a liberal, left-wing guy. Was a skateboarder. He got his start in Occupy Wall Street. Basically just going out there with camera recording what was going on. Like a citizen journalist. Which citizen journalists are the best kind of journalists. Because mainstream media are not journalists. They're propagandists. So the real journalism is done by the average person now. Which I wouldn't call myself a journalist, I would say I'm a commentator. But I try to at least do somewhat objective commentary, and I try to do some journalism in the researching and reporting facts. I'm 10 times better than the mainstream media. More than 10 times. There are left-wing independent content creators, even if you're like, oh, you're just saying that because you're right-wing. No, there are left-wing independent content creators that are miles better. than the media, the mainstream media. So again, what's the media doing? They call you, the independent journalists, fake news. You're terrible. You could get beat up. You need to be censored. Because they themselves are fake news. Anyone criticizing, if Trump says the mainstream media is the enemy of the people, they get the vapors and talk about how dangerous it is 24/7. But when their side's beating up citizen journalists, no problem. Oh, they had it coming. Tim Pool, this left-wing person, he started to question the left when he would go out to rally after rally after rally and said every single time, it could be any cause. You could have the Richard Spencers of the world, you know? He'd go out, interview them. He didn't like what they had to say. He thought they were bigots, but they weren't attacking him. Every single time the Antifa crowd attacks him. Every time. And other journalists. It's always them starting the fights. And that's the other issue that's worth talking about here real quick. Show me one time that a group of Trump supporters or a group of right-wing people showed up to any left-wing cause and started a fight. It's always the other way around. It's always there's a conservative march, a conservative rally, and then Antifa comes in, and then there's a clash. Now, does that mean that it's always Antifa's fault? No. Like, you could put, I've seen some, not many, individual scenarios where it's like, okay, Antifa showed up, but there's still something that was unjustified. Not often. Imagine that Elizabeth Warren, pick your Democratic politician. We'll just say Elizabeth Warren. Imagine Elizabeth Warren decides to have a rally, right? And 100 mass Trump supporters show up and just start macing and beating the shit out of Warren supporters. What do you think the media narrative would be the next day? Imagine if a Trump supporter got in a van and tried to run over Democrats registering Democratic voters like we saw today. What do you think the media story would be? But this stuff happens every day. Seemingly. Not every day, that's hyperbolic. Antifa shows up all the time. No problem. It's the worst they'll come to say, which is hilarious, is, well, both sides are bad. Proud Boys, told us, they're a terrorist organization, the Proud Boys. Why did the Proud Boys start? They were a direct response to Antifa. Now, some of the I've seen video where sometimes the Proud Boys, it's like, eh. But most of the time, you get tired of getting yelled at, heckled, spit on, maced, sprayed, poked, punched, shoved, burglarized, all of this stuff every day. If you're in somewhere like Portland and you're a conservative and you want to show support for Trump. So you decide to fight back, and what do they say? You're the criminal. You saw the police there. We're not going to get involved. Antifa runs that city. The mayor has no problem with Antifa. Now, you show me one city in this country where there's a right-wing gang roaming the streets in masks, and the police are like, yeah, we're all for it. And the mayor's like, yeah, they're cool. And Don Lemon's like, yeah, they're not bad. That's where the danger is. And they're setting up the situation. I read a rabbi say this the other day. He mentioned the Proud Boys. Remember when that black Hebrew Israelite shut up that Jewish deli? Where was it, like in Jersey? Outside of New York? And I saw this rabbi in an article. He said, look, the police won't do anything. Cuomo won't do anything. They don't care. They only care about anti-Semitism if you could blame it on Trump. If it's someone who doesn't look like a Trump supporter, like someone who's Islamic, someone who's darker skinned, they don't care to try to solve it. At all. So, the Jews there, if you're of Jewish faith, tough luck. Police start investigating. No one cares. Let us know if it's a Trump supporter, then we'll be there. We'll send the whole SWAT team out. But until then, sorry, deal with it. And so this rabbi said, look, what are we supposed to do? The police won't protect us. The mayor won't protect us. The politicians won't protect us. But we know that if we fight back, we'll be considered the bad guys, just like the Proud Boys. And that's absolutely right. Antifa is a useful tool. The reason they're so dangerous, it's not just because they'll try to run over you. I mean, that's bad. Don't get me wrong. But it's what they symbolize. It is the establishment telling you, we can have our goons attack you in public, and we control the narrative so much that you're the bad guy. You just have to take it. You take getting beat up every time you want to support your cause. You just take it. And the moment you fight back, you're the bad guy. The police will come for you. Does this sound familiar? Here's an analogous situation I bring up all the time. Go to the UK. Go to the Muslim grooming gangs in the UK. This is the exact tactic they took. If you read what was going on, they were doing things like they would hold marches that were celebrating the 9/11 attackers and the 7/7 bombings. They'd celebrate them. Hold posters up with their names, celebrate them. When there were military parades and stuff, they would protest them, throw stuff at the military people. If you got upset and did something back, the police arrested you. We know that the local politicians and police knew that thousands of underage girls were being raped, gang raped, over and over again for 3 decades, 4 decades. Not only did the police know about it, they did nothing. And then when the local people whose girls, daughters, were being sexually assaulted like this, went to the police treated them like the criminals. And then what's the predictable? What do you expect to happen in that situation? Inevitably, what's going to happen? People are going to take matters in their own hands. And that's what they want. You take the matter into your own hand, and then they say, oh, you're the problem. See? It's not the grooming gangs. It's not the raping of the girls. That wasn't the problem. The fact that you're mad about it's the problem. Does that sound familiar? Antifa's not the problem. It's your problem for filming their crimes. They can beat people up and vandalize property, no problem. But if you film them, you're the problem. If they beat you up and you swing back, you're the problem. By the way, we want to take away your right to defend yourself as well, so that roving mobs that our police are allowed to support can really hammer on you without you having a way to defend yourself. You starting to see a picture? Or how about, here's another example of the same type of mentality. How many reporters did you see this week after Trump's speech? He did the prayer breakfast, and then he did the speech at like noon, talking about the end of impeachment, where he said it was all bullshit and went off on it. How many reporters did you see say, Trump, oh, can you believe how dark Trump's statement? Oh, this is so dark. It's so dangerous for Trump to go after the FBI and the Democrats like this. And what did I tell you on this channel? I said, isn't it telling that the official narrative from the mainstream media and the Democrats is Trump pointing out the FBI's corruption is very troubling. But they have no problem with the actual FBI corruption. You see? They push you, they violate your rights, they're corrupt to you. In the case of Antifa, they physically assault you. That's all okay. But as soon as you protest that, whether it be by filming Antifa, by swinging a punch back at Antifa, or if it's you're talking politics, the FBI abuses Trump over and over, that's fine. As soon as Trump calls them out, that's the problem. That's the power that the establishment has. That's the power that the globalists have. Why do they have that power? Because they control the narrative. That's why I tell you all the time, the way to beat Antifa, look, if Antifa comes at you, I don't care what group it is, if you are directly physically attacked, you have every right to defend yourself. But other than that, you shouldn't be out there seeking violent confrontation. You should go out, and if you want to go to a Patriot Prayer rally, go to it. You have every right to go to it. And be willing to defend yourself. But you shouldn't say, we're going out to find Antifa today to fight them. That's not the way to go about it. That's why I say, it's not that we need our roving bands out there fighting them. I'm trying to stop that from ever becoming an option. The way we win is to stop the establishment's control of the narrative through channels like this, through you telling your friends and family what's going on, etc. I hear you, Mark. That could be right, Lewis Sharp, and that's what I say all the time. You want to know how effective the establishment is? People celebrate Tommy Robinson getting thrown into prison. Whatever you think of the guy. There was actually public displays of approval for throwing Tommy Robinson in jail. Yet the same people The same people cheering for him and being a job know very well that their politicians and police officers allowed their daughters to be raped over and over again. Literally, I'm not making this up. Not one, to my knowledge, not one politician or one police officer has been held criminally accountable for 30 years knowing that these rapes occurred and covering up the rapes. Not one. Yet where are the British people in their marches for that? They're too busy applauding Tommy Robinson being thrown in jail. It's the same here. I'm not saying the Proud Boys never did anything wrong. But we'll spend all of our time, yay, good, screw those Proud Boys, they're terrible. And again, if you're a Proud Boy and your opinion is, let's go out and find Antifa tonight, that's not good. And I have seen videos like that, where they both agreed to show up and have mutual combat. Stupid. Stupid. But if you're a Proud Boy and you're just saying, hey, we're going to make sure this Patriot Prayer rally goes off without these thugs showing up again, now they're considered the demons. If we put 1/10 of the focus on Antifa that we did on how the Proud Boys are terrorists, then maybe this sort of intimidation by them would stop. Remember, as the media was praying Antifa, what did we have happen? They raided an ICE facility, they took down the American flag, burned it, flew the Mexican flag. Then later that night, an Antifa member from the John Brown Gun Club, remember, showed up to an ICE facility with Molotov cocktails, armed to the teeth, tried to burn down the facility and was shot and killed. Only lucky are we that he didn't kill an ICE agent or burn down a building with people detained in it. But that's cheered. That's perfectly fine. They'll cheer for it. That's okay, they say. Right, David, that's exactly the point. If law enforcement just takes the tact of, we're not going to put up with this Antifa crap, then they don't show up. Now, here's my prediction. Inevitably, whether it be because patriots and the non-establishment start winning, and we start getting more headway into the narrative, convincing the millions of people, because you have to understand, the people that aren't following this heavily, they don't know. Many of them just believe the public narrative. Oh, Antifa, maybe they're not the greatest people, but they're noble heroes fighting against Nazis. And so if they punch you, you must be a Nazi. Right? There are a ton of people that believe that's somewhat the truth because the information doesn't get out to them because the narrative's controlled. Once that starts to change, that will force, mark my words, Portland is as left-wing as it becomes. Inevitably, something so heinous will happen that public outcry against Antifa will step up. Then the Portland mayor will change his tune. Oh, no, yeah, we need to crack down on Antifa. When you know he secretly supports them, not even secretly, openly basically supports them. But all of a sudden he'll say, oh yeah, I never was with them. And then even in Portland, the police will start cracking down. And then you'll see the real violence from Antifa. See, when do you need to engage in terrorism? I mean, this is Warfare 101. Go back to the French and Indian War. The Indians fought guerrilla warfare, right? Why? Because they were vastly outnumbered. So you have to change your tactics. Well, the same's true of political argumentation and political terrorism. You don't need to be a political terrorist when you have power. So right now, Antifa has establishment power. They do. They have cover by the media and academia and politicians, etc. Once that's taken away and all these LARPers start getting their heads smashed in by police when they spit at police and pepper spray police or pepper spray people, and they start going to jail for 20, 30 years for these assaults, as they should, when they start being treated under RICO statutes as a terrorist organization, then they won't have that power. So they'll be, yes, most of their members will stop playing their little LARP and go back to their basements playing Call of Duty. But the real ideological ones, they'll increase the violence. Because now they don't have the backing of the system behind them, so to get their point, they have to increase the violence. That's what's going to happen. And then you'll see a rewriting of history like you always do when all of the media class and all the Democrats and all of academia and all the entertainment industry and everyone that celebrated these people at Charlottesville, now all of a sudden they'll say, oh, no, we never defended them. We never celebrated them. That's what they'll say. Just checking some. Right, Antifa's not going to show up to our towns like us. And yeah, it is backed by groups like George Soros. Remember, Soros isn't just backing groups like Antifa. Soros is also backing groups like attorney generals, local police officials that are elected, local prosecutors. He's doing this in city after city. That's why you see like policies in New York releasing these violent criminals, releasing them without bail under the streets. It creates division. It creates crime-infested areas that it's then easier to control. So he's controlling the mobs and he's trying to buy the law enforcement. Yeah, I ran District 12, but I'm currently in District 15. Now, I will be redistrict after 2020 because of the census, so I don't know what my district will be, but I live in Clarion County. I will be running unless the representative that is the incumbent and Republican starts to enact decisions that I like. Currently, that's not happening, so. Yeah, I do live in PA. Thank you, Mike. So that's my spiel on Antifa today. Couple more things to talk about. Oh boy, I didn't even get to the... Let's do this section first. Give me 1 second. I got another video to play for it. Hopefully it doesn't lag again.
As a Republican, you get investigated.
All right, so I have a video to play of you of Lindsey Graham, and I think it's worth talking about. The problem I have with Lindsey Graham is he sounds really good. He says good things all the time, but we never see action from him. So I'm hopeful. I'm glad that he's talking like this, but I'll believe it when I see it. Anyways, though, I think this is something that all of us have been waiting to hear. Let's just hope it comes true. So here's him on Judge Janine's show. Let's see what he says.
I'm going to live in a world where, as a Republican, you get investigated from the day you get sworn in. 3 years later, they're still coming after you. Here's what amazes me. The Russian investigation, what happened? Half the people behind the Russian investigation are going to go to jail, and Trump was cleared.
Hopefully.
Well, just hang tight. Okay. They come after Trump on Ukraine, and Biden blows up. So every time they throw a rock at Trump, they get hit. So here's what we should look at. Why did the State Department not act when they were told about the conflict of interest with Hunter Biden regarding the Ukraine, right?
Right.
Who is the whistleblower? Does he have contacts on Schiff's staff? Did Colonel Vindeman leak information to the whistleblower?
Right.
And as to the FISA warrant, how could you sign the warrant 4 times and not know the whole thing was off the rails? That's where I come in.
Okay, so you're going to do something, because even the head of the FISA court said it was wrong. It was not predicated on probable cause. You know the whole thing. So you're going to do something. You want to tell us what you're going to do?
Yeah, I'm going to give a list of witnesses to the Department of Justice that I want to call. It's going to be the case agent. I want to find out how this thing got so screwed up. Why didn't they tell about the Russian source who said the dossier is not reliable.
That's
How could
right.
it be possible that it never goes up to the top? I want to know what Obama knew about this investigation. I want to call Rosenstein, Sally Yates, Comey and McCabe, and all the people who worked on this case to find out how it got so off the rails and make sure it never happens again. And I want to know who in the White House knew about this counterintelligence investigation against the Republican nominee.
You and I both.
Yeah, so the downside of this is Lindsey Graham talks a good game all the time, so who knows? But you can't help but get a little excited when Chris Matthews, you say, get a little tingle up your leg when you hear something like this. This is what I've been saying the whole time. Everything that we fought for since the election of Trump is meaningless if people aren't held criminally accountable. So even to just hear someone like Lindsey Graham say half these people are going to jail is a little exciting. Now, I'm still a realist and a pessimist, so I'll believe it when I see it. But he goes on to say the right thing, right? And this is something that I've been telling people a lot. Don't lose focus. Right? Make sure that we go as high as possible with accountability. And what that means, at least in our political system, is the President of the United States. The buck stops there. This corruption, I know it goes beyond Obama, but he needs to finally be in the crosshairs. Not Hillary. Hillary committed crimes, particularly with the Clinton Foundation, all sorts of other things connected to that. But Hillary's crime in the Russia hoax is insignificant to me. I don't care that she got dirt on Trump from Russians. I don't care that she accepted the help from the FBI in smearing Trump. That's fine. That's her as the candidate. The real abuses is the FBI and the Obama agencies using this propaganda sourced from Kremlin officials to spy on Trump and all the other crap they did to Trump. That's the real crimes. That's where we need to be focused. So, for example, when impeachment, it seemed like oftentimes the Republican talking point was, well, Hunter Biden committed crimes. We need to investigate Hunter Biden. Sure, that's true, but that's small potatoes. The real crime is the cover-up of Hunter Biden's crimes by Joe Biden and Barack Obama. Because as Joe Biden said in that now famous clip to the CFR, I showed up to the Ukraine. I said I'm getting on a plane in 6 hours. Fire Shokin or you're not getting your money. What's the next thing he says? They said, you're not the president. You can't make this call. Biden says, I said, call him. Because he's on board. Do you see? Obama personally knew. Obama ordered it. And so to hear Lindsey Graham say, for the first time that I'm aware of, a senator that's not Rand Paul or someone say, yeah, these people are going to go to jail, and then say, and we're looking at Sally Yates, we're looking at Rosenstein, we're looking at Obama. That's exciting. I hope it's true. My hope is this. I'm the most optimistic I've been in some time that people might actually be held accountable. I'd still say I'm 50-50. I'm not someone of great faith when it comes to the corrupt in our government actually being held to account. They might get fired, but to actually face criminal charges, I don't know. My optimism doesn't come from Lindsey Graham, though. It comes directly from Donald Trump. And let me explain why. If you saw the live stream I did after Trump's kind of celebratory speech about the impeachment being over, again, the one where he called it BS, he had a swagger that you've seen oftentimes at rallies, but it wasn't just this swagger. There was like, I don't know, maybe I'm reading into it, but it seemed like this intent behind it. And here's how I think of it. I was talking to Michael at the Patriot Hour about this. There are two reasons that Trump couldn't come into office and just kick the doors down and start firing people and investigating and charging people. The first is, it would have looked bad. Right, even for objective people like even someone like me, that thinks Hillary Clinton committed a bunch of crimes, right? If Trump comes in and like first week in office, he's like, okay, I'm getting rid of everyone at the FBI, and now I'm putting new people in the FBI, and then those people find Hillary guilty, more than half of America would have been like, this looks really bad. Like, you literally just handpicked someone to find Hillary Clinton guilty. So I understand optically why you couldn't do that. Same reason, like David was saying earlier, the same reason you couldn't fire the Vindmans during the impeachment investigation. But there's another reason that no one really talks about. Trump's not a superhuman. He's still human. And I don't care what kind of accolades you have in your life, what you've done in your civilian life, or even in your military life. Becoming the president of the United States has to be one of the most awe-inspiring, nerve-wracking things that a human being could do. It is the biggest of the biggest when it comes to stages. And so, I'm not saying your confidence is shaken, but picture that you're Trump. You're going in and your gut feeling is there's corruption everywhere, right? Drain the swamp. But you get in there and you got these soothsayers just in your ear every day. Mr. Trump, listen to me, Mr. Trump, Mr. Trump, Mr. Trump, listen to us, listen, Mr. Trump, you can't do this, you can't do that, here's what you need to do, oh, you're the best, do this, do that, do this, oh, well, you know. And I think that Trump, that speech showed me, he's getting his feet under him. He's starting to realize, like, right? I didn't vote for John Bolton. I didn't vote for Kellyanne Conway. I didn't vote for Steve Bannon. I didn't vote for Manafort. I didn't vote for any of the people that are around Trump. I voted for Donald Trump. And his gut feeling on most things has been right. He's right about the swamp. He's right about wanting to end these disastrous wars. He's right about the corruption all through D.C. But he's got these people constantly in his ear. Oh, don't say that. Oh, you got to stay in Afghanistan. Oh, you got to stay in Syria. Oh, you got to do this. Oh, you got to do that. Oh, sanction Russia. Oh, do this, do that. Oh, you can't go after. Stop. Don't worry about going after Hillary. Oh, don't worry about going after these criminals. Mr. Trump, your poll numbers are up. The economy's doing well. Just play it safe. Don't worry about going after the corrupt FBI. Oh, Mr. Trump, don't go on CNN and start calling the media the enemy of people. Oh, Mr. Trump, stop tweeting so much about all the corruption and stuff. We're winning. And I'm hopeful that Trump's now like, I got this. Now, again, this movement's bigger than one person. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that I hope Trump now understands that he hears the people. He hears people like me and all the people that are listening to me and millions of other people. We're tired of the corruption. If what Lindsey Graham suggested there does not occur, not only will it not matter if Trump wins another term, but his first term and even that second term will have been a failure. There might be high points here and there, but it will be a failure. And I say that as a Trump supporter. Because if the corrupt people are not criminally charged, the corruption will not end. Period. It does not matter how much you talk about it. It doesn't matter how many of them you fire. It doesn't matter that you have Sean Hannity telling his audience, or me, some chubby guy with a beard, telling his audience. None of that will matter. The only way that corruption will end is for those that are corrupt to be held accountable. Period. It is not a victory to have the IG report come out and be damning of James Comey and the FBI, only to have charges not be pressed against James Comey, and James Comey to be laughing in your face on Twitter, demanding apologies, saying of how awesome he is. Do you think he learned his lesson? Do you think that the corrupt officials at the FBI learned their lesson? Only if they're charged. If not, the lesson they learned will be, hell, next time be even more corrupt. Nothing will happen to us. At worst, you lose your job, get a cushy book deal, and you get on CNN every night. You're considered a hero of all the people in the establishment. So, I've heard, Lindsey Graham say good things before and then not do anything. Supposedly Grassley's looking at records of Hunter Biden. Glenn Beck claims he gave all of his records from his last show to Grassley. There's claims that there's investigations right now with the information Rudy Giuliani's provided to the Senate. Hopefully that's all true. But never forget, we know the biggest political scandal in the history of this country, that Barack Obama's FBI illegally spied on the Trump campaign, using information paid for by the DNC, sourced by Kremlin officials. We know that. Watergate was two bumbling fools going through a hotel looking at a candidacy's documents. We now know that for well over a year, the FBI spied on Trump, even before and after he was president, based on lies. They broke protocol. They manufactured evidence to do so, over and over again. And hardly a peep. I'm on here screaming about it every day, losing my voice, but other than me. And I said I wouldn't scream today, and I'll hold to that. So what I'll do, now that we're talking about the FBI, let me try something here. I've never done this on my channel. I'll play you a video of me screaming about the FBI. That way you don't have to. Oh wait, it's not going to work that way. Let me try it this way. If you follow me on Twitter, which the description's in the channel if you're watching on YouTube or D Live, you'll be able to see this. This is my head, or my main thread on Twitter, the saved thread or whatever.
Christopher Steele have another source for this info? No, that's it. So basically, we have a guy saying Carter Page is a criminal, and the guy who told him that is saying, no, he's not. Okay, no case. See ya. But they didn't. They held back that information. But here's what makes it just the cherry on top that is one of the biggest examples of corruption I've ever seen. In other words, we felt this guy was telling the truth. We interviewed him. So we need to wiretap Carter. They left out, oh, and he said our case is garbage. They again did the exact opposite of the truth. Again. And the Democrats say that's a mistake. Horowitz admitted in testimony at least 5 people were aware of the interview with that subsource. At least 5. And he said it'd be pretty much beyond the realm of belief that it didn't work its way up the chain. Because the higher-ups had to approve the meeting with the subsource, so they knew the meeting happened. And you don't hear McCabe or Priestap or Jim Comey coming out and saying, holy shit! You mean that entire investigation we started, the subsource, said it was a lie? My God, I'm furious that my FBI agents didn't tell me that. Instead, they're celebrating like it was a victory. I don't know how to make this more clear to people. That's the opposite of the truth. That's not a mistake. A mistake would have been maybe for the 5th time that we've been talking, they forgot to mention that they interviewed the subsource, which again would be incredible. It would be an incredible abuse. But maybe then you could possibly make a case that it just slipped their minds. But they include, we interviewed him, he told the truth. But they leave out that we're wrong. That's what he told the truth about. Now you might notice I'm a little pissed off about the whole thing. On one hand, I'm vindicated. Everything I've been saying for 3 years has been proven true. But on the other hand, we have definitive proof that the most powerful investigative agency in the history of the world is corrupt and was trying to bring down a president. And no one gives a shit. I just don't want a corrupt government. But I can't even get that. And now when it's in your face, we got people celebrating that lied to us for years. These media people knew. The Democrats like Schiff knew. The FBI knew. Now how many times did I have to hear, even from the Republicans yesterday? Oh, well, we know. None of this counters the Mueller investigation and the FBI investigation. Bullshit! Why do I believe them about anything? Even if we take the media and the Democrats' defense, they're the most incompetent people ever. So let's accept the Democrats and the FBI excuse. Oh, this was just incompetence. It was just incompetence. Incompetence that they told the exact opposite of the truth. Not that they left it out. They told the opposite of the truth. That's not incompetence. And if it is, it's such a staggering amount of incompetence. Why would you believe these people? Is it a coincidence that the same people running this show were running the Hillary investigation? Oh, by the way, the IG report said there were violations and things against FBI policy over and over again in that investigation. Or Comey, who is criminally referred for being biased and leaking classified information against Trump. The same group of people are doing the Russia investigation, but we have to take their word there. We have to, everything they said there was good. Believe them. Yes, they didn't get access to the physical server, They didn't go, but how dare you? You're a crazy conspiracy theorist if you don't think that the Russians hacked. I don't know anymore. Why would I believe this group? If that's the excuse that these people are so stupid and are so bad at their jobs that they didn't know you're not supposed to tell the opposite of the truth, why should I believe anything they say about any investigation ever? This wasn't some low-level investigation. Horowitz admits everyone they talked to at the FBI said, we know this will be our most heavily scrutinized investigation. The teams weren't random hodgepodge beginners in the FBI. They were handpicked by McCabe. 3 teams. It went the entire, Horowitz said it went to the top of the FBI. But I'm no longer taking the FBI's word for it. Sorry. That ship sailed.
Yeah. Boy, that guy was talking some sense, huh? I was even wearing the same shirt. Got a little haircut since then. No wonder I lose my voice. Yeah, for those of you, just to rehash what I was talking about at the beginning there, because my friend edited that for me, just to get to me yelling parts. Yeah, I'll have to check that out, John. Absolutely. Yeah, my neighbors are pretty cool. What's up, Linda? My neighbors, I think I got them tuned into me, actually, once in a while, so they agree with me. They're good people. I've only lived there for like 6 months, too, so they probably think I'm some madman. But just for those of you, why was I so infuriating? But remember, there's so much stuff to unpack in that IG report of the FISA abuses. The worst of the worst is like the 2 things that I outlined specifically. Again, because my job's to make it as simple as possible. So I could talk about the minutia little details that they screwed up or intentionally did wrong. But here's the 2 biggies. One is, and you've heard this one. They get an email from the CIA. The CIA guy says, look, Carter Page actually worked as an asset for the CIA to help bring down Russian terrorists, Russian corrupt officials. The FBI lawyer changes that email to say, Carter Page did not work for us. So it's the exact opposite of the truth, right? And again, here's how I liken it. Say that fingerprints are found at a crime scene, and they say, Rob Noor was the one who robbed this house. Get it, Rob? Rob robbed this house. There's a fingerprint. We could prove it. So they take the fingerprint and analyze it, and it's not mine. So how corrupt would it then be for the police to say, well, we're just going to leave out that we ever found that fingerprint? That's terrible. That's an incredible abuse of power by the police to withhold exonerating evidence. I know, I'll grow it back out, don't worry. But what's worse, it's worse in this situation. It wasn't just that they withheld the exonerating evidence, so they never gave the FISA court the email from the CIA agent. Instead, they changed it to say the opposite of the truth. So instead of just not giving over the judge the fingerprint evidence that exonerates me, they just lie and say, yeah, that was Rob's fingerprint. That's corruption of the highest magnitude. It is still the official story of the Democrats and the media today, and the FBI. Christopher Wray that's still running it. That this wasn't intentional. That was just incompetence. Remember, this was handpicked, 4 handpicked teams at the highest level of the FBI. Supposed to be the best of the best. And they didn't know that you weren't supposed to manufacture evidence to say the opposite of what it really says. That's literally the narrative we're told. That's the establishment narrative. The same people that call you a crazy conspiracy theorist. They think if you don't believe that, then you're a crazy conspiracy theorist. That's not even the worst example of what they did. The worst example is, I don't know I'm rehashing this stuff, but why this isn't talked about every day is beyond me. Understand who Christopher Steele is. Christopher Steele was not someone who claimed to have firsthand information about anything. Like, let's take the impeachment thing for a second. You had the whistleblower, right? And the whistleblower says, I didn't hear this phone call between Trump and Zelensky, but I heard from someone who did hear it that all of this bad stuff happened, right? A, B, C. And then Trump's like, well, here's the transcript. The whistleblower is no longer relevant in terms of what his feelings are. You know, picture this. If I tell you like, oh man, The Godfather's the greatest movie in the world. It's got this scene, and it's got this scene, and it's got this scene. You might take, okay, That's what I know about The Godfather, what Rob told me. But then once you watch The Godfather, you really don't care what I said about it, right? You could yeah, I saw it. I can make up my own mind. Well, it's the same here. Christopher Steele didn't have Christopher Steele's just reporting rumors to the FBI. I heard from this guy, Yuri, this Russian guy connected to the Kremlin, Yuri. Well, I don't know what his name was. But Christopher Steele says, I had 2 Kremlin sources. And I heard from them all this bad stuff about Trump. Now, he's not claiming he personally saw Trump or his team do any of this bad stuff. He's just saying, I heard from someone who says they saw this. So eventually, the FBI gets around to talking to the subsource. Now, in this case, Christopher Steele, once you talk to Christopher Steele's source, Christopher Steele is irrelevant. Do you understand that? I'm trying to think of a simple example. If I tell you, I heard the Pittsburgh Pirates owner is going to do X, and you're like, oh, that's interesting. And then you go talk to the Pittsburgh Pirates owner, and the Pirates owner's like, no, I'm not going to do X. You don't then default back to, well, Rob said you're going to do X, so that must be true. So Christopher Steele reports all this information. The FBI interviews the source that Steele got the information from, and the source says, all of that information is wrong, every bit of it. In fact, he's shocked. He's like, I can't believe the FBI is taking this seriously. The peace stuff, for example, was us joking at a bar. This source, the same source that supposedly we had to take seriously to investigate Trump and Carter Page for all these serious allegations, when finally interviewed by the FBI, says, my God, there was not one bad conversation with anyone connected to Trump's team in a Russian. This is all garbage. The FBI takes that information, goes to the FISA court, tells the FISA court, yes, we interviewed the subsource, and we found the subsource to be incredibly truthful. And that's it. So if you're at the FISA court, you're like, okay, so Christopher Steele says the subsource says Trump did all this bad stuff. And now you at the FBI, you're telling me you interviewed that subsource and you find that subsource to be truthful. Yep. And they left out, oh, by the way, what he was truthful about was that we've been wrong about everything. I mean, that is corruption of a magnitude that it's hard to even write in fiction. I mean, I'm not going to yell and scream about it tonight as much as I want to. But that's the corruption that happened at the FBI. And we're told, oh, Trump complaining about that. That's very dark for Trump to complain about that. I mean, it's just nonsense. You need to tell every American person, every person that doesn't know this information. How many of your family and friends know about that? This isn't my opinion. This is the actual Democrat argument. Adam Schiff, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, Chris Wray, James Comey, Rebecca Baker, Anderson Cooper, Jake Tapper, Rachel Maddow, everyone at the New York Times, everyone at the Washington Post, Jerry Nadler, on and on, all of these establishment people. Their official version is, yes, the FBI changed evidence to say the opposite of what it was. Yes, they interviewed the subsource. The subsource said the entire case against Trump was garbage. They believed the subsource, but withheld that evidence from the FISA court. And no, it's not corrupt at all. They were just doing their jobs and made a simple mistake. That is literally the narrative. And then the narrative goes on from there. And how dare Trump be upset about this? That's the real troubling thing, that Trump's upset about this. I mean, it's mind-blowing. Now, unfortunately, I don't have a quarter here, but I do have this dime. See, I thought lately I've been flipping a coin like in the DNC. I don't know if you saw that great footage. You can check out the video I have from last week on this. At the DNC, at one point, Klobuchar and Buttigieg tied for delegates. And they flipped a coin to decide who got the delegates. And the guy that flipped the coin, he did it like in a real cool way where he rotated it like 5 times in his hand. And then finally was like, oh, it's heads, it's Buttigieg. Corrupt Pete, Mayor Cheat. He won that coin toss. So I figure if a coin toss is good enough for that, I'm going to try to nightly continue. I asked the coin, am I the best content creator online? And so far, every day it's been, yes, I am. Is it me or is it one of the millions of other people? So far, it's been me every time. So I thought maybe what was unfair, because I'm trying to make the process fair, is maybe it's because I was using a quarter. So today I'll be using a dime. So if it's heads, I'm the best content creator. Just like, and I'm going to flip it just like how fairly they did. Remember, we're trying to decide the president of the United States in Iowa here, who it could potentially be, the Democratic nominee. And the coin flip was good for them. The rotating in the hand 5 times was good for them. So good enough for them, good enough for me. So is it me? Heads, I'm the best content creator. Tails, it's one of the millions of other people. So let's do it. Let's give her a flip. Oh, there it is. Heads. Oh, my goodness. I thought maybe it was just because it was a quarter, but even the dime. Wow. I'm honored, though. I mean, it can't be wrong. That gave Buttigieg some delegates, so it must be good enough for me. Whew. All right, let's read the chat for a minute. Oh, yeah, just talking about farming and, yeah. I mean, crazy times we're living in. So, oh, what time is it? 12:55. So it's a big story. All right, I'm going to save the Q story. I'll give you a tease. So if you guys followed the call-ins I got the other day, I feel like I'm Q parallel. I think the more I think about it, Q followers are like any other followers. There's still a diversified group. Some people think Q means one thing. Some people think it means something else. When the IG report on Comey came out and it recommended Comey get criminally charged, I was infuriated when Barr decided not to charge Comey criminally. And I had a bunch of people that either watch me on here or they follow me on Above Top Secret and say, oh, no, Q said this is all part of the plan. And I was like, yeah, I refuse to accept that. I'm not going to take on faith when I can see an actual corrupt member. Not only is the corruption in my face to see, but now we have an independent inspector general that says, yes, this man should be charged criminally. And then the DOJ decides not to charge him criminally. I'm not going to say, well, I'm okay with that because Q says it's okay. Now, I've since had people tell me, no, that's not what it's about. It's about doing your own research. Again, just in a nutshell, I don't take anyone on word unless it's evidence I can see myself. I think Q's probably people connected to Trump. I think they're great people. I think they're patriots. I think they've woken people up. But I don't know that they know what the end game will be, what the outcome will be. They know what Trump's strategy is. They know what their strategy to end this corruption is. But that's not proof that they'll win, you know. I hope so. I hope they do. But anyways, that's it. I think there's a potential danger in saying, oh, Q will take care of everything. Everything's part of a plan, so I don't need to get fired up. Now, I had great people that I trust on this channel call in and say, no, that's not what Q's about. You misunderstand. Q's about doing your own research and okay, maybe I heard from people that were misinterpreting Q. I follow people that follow it and I talk to them, but I'm doing my own lane of research. And if it coincides, so be it, etc. Anyways, I don't disrespect people that follow Q. I think anyone who's out there doing their own research is fantastic. Let's see what you say, Fred Fingers. Well, it's not that I'm ignoring the movement. That's not it at all. Like, picture this. You have a scientist, let's assume non-corrupt science, but like legitimate, just like Isaac Newton type, like actual scientists doing actual work. You have this scientist over here that's solving this problem, right? But almost all the time what you see is simultaneously there are other scientists around the world working on the same problem. And with good science, results can be replicated and things like that. Well, I think that also should be true of where we're getting our information. Like, I say this all the time. Don't just take my word for stuff. Like, double check me. Check out other sources. Don't just accept someone who says, hey, this is what Q means, so that must be true. It could be true, but you should also do your own fact checking. So I'm not ignoring it. I'm operating differently. And I think that there is a huge danger in anything. Like, unless you're religious and you're believing in God, there's a huge danger in saying, I accept with total faith what this human tells me. So if you follow Q, that's great, especially if you're doing your own research. And you can check everything I've done on this show, everything I've blogged. Not once have I disparaged anyone connected to Q. I've said, well, I already told you the closest thing to it, where I said, when I had Q followers tell me, don't get upset that Comey didn't get arrested. I'm still upset Comey didn't get arrested. Yeah, and it is good insider info. I'm just saying, you should always do your own research. Yeah, and it's not dividing me, that's for sure. Anyways, why am I bringing Q up again today? This is what I'll be talking about tomorrow at some point. The New York Times. This is from their article today. And basically, this whole article is just crapping on people that believe in Q. It's a wild conspiracy theory. It's going to enter the real world. It's going to be dangerous. And I'll break down how it is ironic from what's supposed to be the premier journalistic standard in all of media in the world that has for 3 years peddled every garbage conspiracy theory against Trump as if it was true, to dare insult average people that are basically doing their own research, that are trying to out corruption. They disparage those people. Like they're some ignorant rubes. But they never look in the mirror and say, look at the conspiracy theories we've peddled for 3 years. So I'm not going to spoil it, but that's what a lot of it's going to be. Fret Finger says Comey will be indicted next week. I guess we'll see. Yeah, I mean, it's a weird debate. Like, I don't want, like, I don't know how to put this. Like, I do my own thing. That's it. I don't want to be attached to a, like, I don't know. I'm not cryptic like that. I'm just not. I'm not saying they're wrong to do it, and I'm just not cryptic. That's not how I do things. I'm trying to look at evidence that I can see, interpret that evidence, give you my most honest presentation, regardless if that evidence goes for my team or against my team. I try to have fun while I'm doing it. I try to reach out to people on all sides. I try to reach out to people that are average people that don't necessarily have time to sift through all this stuff. That's what I'm about. If Q follows me in that, great. If Q diverges from that, that's great too. But that's just where I'm at. I should send my stuff to Rush Limbaugh's crew. I wouldn't mind. If you guys, anyone who wants to put my stuff out to anyone, I would more than appreciate it. I really would. So if you want to send stuff for me, and I've sent stuff to Tucker Carlson, I've sent stuff to Rush, I sent stuff to The Blaze, that Glenn Beck owns, because they were looking for people for their show. So it's tough when you're, I say, just starting out. I've been doing this, 2 years? But it's tough. It's tough. I feel very lucky that I've got as many people as I have now watch. I mean, you could ask people that have been with me for a while. Like John, I think you've been with me for a while. That video I showed you, me ranting and raving about the FBI, I probably had 6 people watching that day. But I don't care. I'm going to keep plugging away regardless. But yeah, I'm trying to reach out. I'm trying to grow and get in new platforms and stuff like that. But I'll always be me, because I think being authentic is one of the most important things. So there's one other thing I was going to talk about, and that's James Carville, the Raging Cajun. Best known for being on the movie Old School. He's the Democrat that Will Ferrell debates. I thought this was worth talking about just for a minute. Now, there was a movie called The War Room. This was something that helped get me interested in politics. And it was about basically James Carville and George Stephanopoulos running the original Bill Clinton campaign to get him elected. And it was just interesting to me as a fan of politics to see the behind-the-scenes workings. So I knew Carvel from a long time ago. I don't like the guy at all, but he was a shrewd political strategist. And he's definitely a Democrat. He was one of these people. It was like Kellyanne Conway and her husband. Carvel's wife was a big Republican, and James Carvel's a big Democrat. Anyways, huge Democrat. And he recently gave interviews this week of how insane the Democrats have been coming. So I thought this was worth pointing out just for a minute. According to Carvel, both Sanders and Senator Warren were pushing stupid ideas about higher education. Quote, Democrats talking about free college tuition or debt forgiveness. I'm not here to debate the idea. What I can tell you is that people all over this country worked their way through school and sent their kids to school and paid off student loans. They don't want to hear this shit. And you saw Warren confronted by an angry voter over this. It's just not a winning message. I did a video on that. That's where the man went up to Elizabeth Warren and said, hey, you say about giving tuition back to everyone. What about me? I worked a second job so my daughter could go to college. Do I get a refund? She says, of course not. And James Carvel's rightly pointing out, it doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat. You don't like to hear, hey, you did everything right. You didn't get into massive debt. You worked 2 jobs so that your sibling or your daughter or son could go to college. Screw you, buddy. Now you got to pay more tax dollars for all the people that borrowed money and got worthless degrees. Like, that's not a good message for America. At one point, Carvel took aim at the New York Times writer who posted a snarky tweet about Louisiana State University, Carvel's alma mater. What that tweet was, I read it, I remember. It was this head New York Times writer wrote, was criticizing LSU after they won the championship for giving their students a day free from classes to celebrate. And it said, I wonder if Sanders would consider that higher education and give it for free. So this is Carvel's response. There's going to be a little profanity here, so brace yourself. He says, you know how effing patronizing that is to people in the South or in the middle of the country? First, LSU has an unusually high graduation rate, but that's not the point. It's the goddamn smugness. This is from a guy who lives in New York and serves on the Times editorial board, and there's not a single person he knows that doesn't pat him on the back for that kind of tweet. He's so effing smart. Applebaum doesn't speak for the Democratic Party, but he does represent the urbanist mindset. We can't win the Senate by looking down at people. The Democratic Party has to drive a narrative that doesn't give off vapors that we're smarter than everyone or culturally arrogant. Now, I don't like James Carvel, but he's absolutely right. He's someone who wants the Democrats to win, and he sees that it's falling apart. This is exactly what I talk about. For the past 3 weeks, I've been really hammering on the idea of authenticity. What is it that just makes your skin crawl when you see Nancy Pelosi say, it's a solemn day. It's just so solemn. It's solemn. You beached him. Yeah. Oh, camera's on. Oh, it's solemn. It's a very solemn day. We just can't believe it. I don't have hate in my heart. I'm a Catholic. I don't hate anyone. I don't engage in childless antics. It's a very solemn day. So solemn. We're very solemn here. It's the fakeness. It's the smugness. It's the arrogance. It just drives you crazy. You know if you're a normal American. You know if you're an average American. I don't care if you live in rural America like me, if you're in an inner city, poverty in inner city, maybe you got a white-collar job and you're doing good. I don't care, right? You're all Americans. You already know that basically the system screws you over, no matter what position you're in, unless you're one of the elite. You know that. And so on top of all of that, to have to deal with the arrogance and the smugness and just the contempt for you as a person that's not in there, you know, I'm a fan of comedy. I like George Carlin. I know he was a leftist. He'd probably hate Trump. I don't care. Right? He tells that joke. It's a big club and you ain't in it. That's exactly what DC is. You're not a member of them. You're not even close to the same. They only have 2 reactions to someone like you and to someone like me. Hatred or pity. And I used to tell them, I remember, I was, when I was in debate, everyone was wealthy, everyone was left wing. And I remember one time they thought they were being nice to me. I had someone approach me and say, Rob, I used to wear like metal shirts when I debate, had the big long beard. And they kept telling me, like, you got to trim up, you got to look the part, which they're partially right. They at one point told me, if you just acted like us a little more, you could be one of us. And I was like, I'm good. And I told them, I would rather you hate me than pity me. Never accept someone's pity. It is the most contemptible, smug, self-righteous garbage. If you straight up hate me, fine. But don't pretend to pity me. It just makes my skin crawl. And James Carville's right. This is what he says. He's wrong when he says this. He does. The New York Times writer doesn't represent the Democratic Party. Yes, they do. The arrogance, the smugness. I mean, they are convinced that they're right about all these issues that they couldn't be more wrong on. I'll give you an example. It's kind of a humorous example. So one of the things when you were a debater, I used to get this all the time. I was quite the drinker in college. So, I'm one of the better debaters in the country. You're drinking at some party, and someone will come up to you and they'll be like, oh, I heard you like some debater. Let's have a debate. Let's argue about something. I'd be like, I'm good. You'd probably beat me. Just leave me alone. Oh, come on. So I had this girl one time, and she's just going on and on and on and on and on. Let's have a debate. And I'm just like, finally, I'm like, what do you want to debate about? And she's like, who you voting for? And this was 2008. And I was like, Ron Paul is who I'll vote for. And she says, oh, so you're a racist? And I was like, what? Oh, you're not voting for Obama because you're racist? And I just laughed. I was like, no, that's not it. And she's like, why? I was like, well, let's take the war in Iraq. And I was like, it's a racket. The Republicans and Democrats, they both voted for the war. She says, no, that was Bush. That was Republicans. And I was like, yeah, but almost all the Democrats voted for it. She says, what Democrats? And I was like, pretty much all of them in the House and Senate. And she says, no, but Bush was the president. He appointed all of them. And I was like, wait, what? She's like, yeah, all the senators, Bush appointed all of them. And I was like, whoa, hold on. You're telling me George Bush wins the presidency in 2000, and then he picked all the senators. So there were no Democrats. We didn't get to vote for the senators. They were all picked by Bush. And she's like, yeah. And I was like, okay, get the F out of my house. And I kicked her out of the house. I really did. And people were furious. I blew a gasket. I was screaming at her. I'm like, get out now. And everyone's like, why are you so mad? And I was like, because I just listened to someone for a half an hour tell me they're smarter than me. They're better than me. They're morally superior to me. They're smarter than me. They know I debate, but they know they're better than me at it. And then when you start to talk about it, they don't even know the bare minimum to have any kind of conversation. That's what these people in the Democratic Party are. Did you see AOC put out a video talking about her favorite economist, Milton, how'd she say it? Keynes? Milton Keynes? It's like, how do you have a discussion? Like, she's convinced she's morally superior to you. She's convinced she's smarter than you. And she doesn't know the base thing. She doesn't know anything about it. It's not the ignorance. You could deal with the ignorance on your own. You could deal with someone telling you, like, well, I think this. And you're like, well, I disagree. I just don't think you know what you're talking about. You let them down politely or whatever if you have to. But someone who knows so little, that's so smug. This is the Democrat. That writer for the New York Times is a perfect example. James Carville's wrong. He perfectly epitomizes today's Democratic Party. Totally ignorant of what they're talking about and absolutely confident that they're smarter and better than you. So much so, they don't even think you should have a voice. Yeah, right, John. I mean, it's not just, I don't know, the Elders of Zion. I mean, I know what that is. I I don't follow that heavily. I just say the establishment, the globalist. But yeah, so David, I mean, it's an interesting debate, David. I have left-wing friends. I was playing that game yesterday. If you check out my video game channel, a lot of my friends that were in my house there and family are left-leaning, at least one or two. Think of it this way. It's like triage, right? You're in the military. You're a doctor in the military or what, a medic, and 5 people come in. You triage it, right? The person that's in a life and death situation you treat first. And then the guy just lost a toe. I mean, that sucks. He lost a toe, but you treat it last. To me, ending the corruption in government is the number one most important thing. If that means we get allies on the left that would disagree with us on Medicare for all, it's worth accepting those allies to fight the corruption. And I do believe there are people, particularly the on the street level, the people like me and you that aren't part of the establishment, that might be in favor of some of these policies that we disagree with, but they're not terrible people. Now, Bernie's a hypocrite, Elizabeth Warren's a hypocrite, Buttigieg is right. All these people suck that are running for office. I'm not talking about them, but I'm talking about the people on the street. And so to me, it's a mistake to say, no, you're on the left, you're different than me, I'm not going to listen to you. If you're trying to spread your ideology, like the old phrase, you catch more flies with honey, right? If you're just out there, and I tell the Republican Party this a lot when I'm talking to them, there's an idea, a lot of the Republicans that I'm working with are older people, and there's this contempt for millennials, which, look, I get all the jokes, and a lot of it's grounded in truth. But you also want to start to bring millennials over to our side. And you're not going to convince anyone by making fun of them or saying that they're dumb, or just like Hillary Clinton wasn't going to get any potential Trump supporters to vote for her when she's like, half them are deplorable racist. Who's going to vote for a woman that's calling you a racist? And the Democrat Party does that constantly. If the Democratic Party would hire me, they would do so much better. Because I could be like, look, here's how you spread your message to these people. You don't insult them. Here's a way to talk to them. Now, they might not agree with your policies, but at least here's how to talk to them. It's the same with the Republicans. Like, the Republicans, avoid the inner city like it's the plague in many cases. Why? I'd be in there every day. Now, I'm not saying in a week you're going to get 80% of the inner city vote, but you might get 20%. And if those votes aren't going Democrat, the Democrats are in a lot of trouble. So I don't know. I have friends on all sides of the issue. But yeah, Lewis, you're right. James Carville's, he is warning them. It's going to be bad for them. The arrogance it's untenable. It's just not going to be able to survive in that party. So, all right, 117. Still got 23 people watching on different platforms. Thank you all so much. So what to look out for this week for me schedule-wise? I'm going to try to be putting videos out day to day, but it depends on how my work schedule goes. I should be doing the Patriot Super Panel tomorrow evening. That will be on American Joe's show channel. I'll put out a post or a video, small video, to all my platforms, just letting you know where to go to watch that. Even if there's a slight chance I won't be on the video, I'll be in the chat. But I think I'll be on the video. Well, that depends, Fret Fingers. I mean, I guess I'll deal with this before I finish it. Anyone who refuses to use their brains are my enemy, as they cannot be reasoned with. Without reason, there's no arguing. All that's left is emotion and violence. Okay, but that's assuming that everyone who identifies with any left-leaning policy is not using their brain. And I flat out disagree with that. For example, I live in rural Pennsylvania. There are people that run for local office that are Democrats that start off with, I'm pro-life, I'm pro-Second Amendment. So what, I'm supposed to say, oh, you have no brain though because you want health care for everyone? For example, Fret Fingers, I would say that, I say this all the time, I would guess, in fact, it's not a guess, I know for a fact that as someone who tries to think for myself, there is not one person in the history of the world that has ever thought exactly like me. Because of that, there is certainly not one party or one ideology that has ever thought exactly like me. But if I say, well, if you don't think like me, I just don't think you're using your brain, therefore I refuse to accept you, I'm going to have a very lonely life. Yeah, if you're purely operating on emotion and violence, that's fine. But I'm telling you right now, I've talked to smart people on the left that can make arguments that end up coming up to conclusions that are different than me. But it's because we have disagreements on things. Differentiation of priorities, differentiating on threats, things like that. For example, I think that Occupy Wall Street and the Tea Party basically 90% agreed. Both of them understood that there were these corrupt oligarchs, corrupt interests that were kind of screwing over the average person. They just went about dealing with it in different ways. So I think there was more to be gained from taking the reasonable people in both of those groups and saying, look, let's work together to end this corruption, than having both groups say, oh, our differences are too much. We think the differences are because the other side isn't using their brain, so we're just not going to deal with them. And as long as that ideology pervades, I think that the establishment loves that, because they win then. Because they say, we have Q supporters fighting with Trump supporters that are fighting with evangelicals that don't like Trump, that are fighting with, angry people on the left that want to vote for Bernie, but they're tired of the corrupt process, that are fighting with, et cetera, et cetera. And all these groups hate the corruption, and they can identify the corruption. But as long as they're fighting with each other over less important stuff, the corruption gets to go on. So, right, Fred Fingers. Yeah, I mean, if you're not open to, I agree with you there. I mean, if you're someone who's for censoring ideology, for example, and you're like, I refuse to have a debate, feelings over facts. Yeah, I mean, there's almost no reasoning with them. Absolutely. So, yeah, I guess we agree. I just misread what you were saying there. Yeah, and I agree, John. That's one of the potential problems with Q. I've been told, a real Q follower can tell when it's Q and when it's someone pretending to be Q. I don't know. It's not me. And I see the danger in that. So, anyways, what to expect? Try to find the people. Yeah, I mean, it seems they're not evident. And there may be less so than I'm only 35, so I don't know. But I do know that Twitter doesn't represent the country. All I can tell you is, check out my campaign manager, Tom Kennedy, Democrat, helped me run for office, will be helping me again if I run again. He's done videos with me on here. I think you watch that guy and you think this guy doesn't have a brain. I just think, I disagree with you heavily. I think he's one of the smartest dudes I know. He's a great guy, an awesome guy. We just have some disagreements. So I personally have met many people that identify as left-wing that I think are reasonable people. They're not going to just shout you down as a racist. They'll have discussions with you. And we shouldn't make the same mistakes and just shout them down, I guess is what I'm saying. Anyways, the rest of my week. So Patriot Super Panel tomorrow, 9 or 10. I'm not sure what channel, or I'm not sure what time, but it should be on American Joe's channel. Tuesday night, as always, my live stream, 11 p.m. Tuesday night. Daily videos going out throughout the week. I think I'm going to do another video on the Patriot Hours channel this week at some point, maybe Thursday. And then Friday at noon, all times Eastern, is my other live stream. If you check out the description, you can follow me on Twitter, Fred Fingers, even though you don't use it, or DLive, YouTube, Periscope, Facebook. I think all my links are there. You can also support me on PayPal or Patreon. Hopefully with this video, I think I'm over the point where I can apply for monetization. I don't know that I will monetize. I have to think about it. It depends on how the ads look. If it's bad, I don't care. But it should allow me to super chat, and more importantly, it should allow me to actually start to do mobile live streaming. So thank you to the great people that are patrons to me. Thank you, Linda. I have 4 of them right now. I put out some videos kind of showing what I'd purchased. I should, hopefully tomorrow, possibly, I'll have a new background here for my work office. So hopefully that'll be good for y'all. And then I got some lighting equipment coming. I have a new microphone that I'm interested in getting for when I start mobile live streaming. And what it does is it plugs into my iPhone where you would plug your charger in. And then it's a mic, and apparently the quality is amazing. My friend Chirby's helped me out with that. So if you donate to me, that's the next thing that my money will be going to. I still need to get a subscription to either vMix or StreamYard so that I could have 5 guests at the same time for when it's my time to host the super panel. So that costs money. And then that's just the beginning of my hardware issues. I need to get a computer that can run editing software and blah, blah, blah. So if you support me financially, I'll try to be as clear as possible for where the money goes. If you can't support me financially, that's okay. You probably have better things to do with your money. I'm still going to be doing my channel. So, yeah, I agree with you, Lewis. Term limits is a must. Actually, I'll look it up. I signed a pledge. Thank you, Fret Fingers. I try to follow the chat. As I get more people, sometimes it goes fast. But I got some things in the works for that as well. So, moderators helping me out with giving the best questions people have and things like that. Look, one of the things when I appointed moderators, and I think they've been fantastic. I asked them, please, 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 if anyone's critical of me, if anyone's saying I'm wrong for something, please encourage them to keep going. I'd love to have disagreements. If someone's spamming and just being vulgar, whatever. But disagreeing or saying I'm dumb or I don't like Trump because of this, that's all good. I'm good with all that. I love having that. Regardless if you support me financially or not, I'll still be doing the channel, but it is something that would help me out, and I have a lot of great ones, which I'll be shouting out to them soon that have helped me. A preacher who's not in here tonight gave me the flag for my background at home, which I think worked really well. And then the last thing I'll say is I got enough people here watching Now 21. If you check out the videos I did yesterday, a lot of people were confused as what was going on. I talked about this at the beginning of the show. That's not something I'm going to be doing a lot on my channel. What it was I was supposed to do SJG's channel last night, and then he had stuff come up. And that Saturday nights normally are fun night. Like, we drink a couple beers and just joke around. Instead, I had people come over, and we drank a couple beers. And I got these games for my PlayStation. It's called Jackbox games, like that old game You Don't Know Jack. But it's different games, like trivia or drawing and stuff. And instead of using a control, you use your cell phone. And you can actually play with people online. So I just put it up on my YouTube channel, and I had some great people volunteer tribute for money. Thank you. But I had some great people like Preacher join me, Big Sky Crypto join me, and some others. It was a lot of fun. But not everyone's cup of tea. And I had a lot of people like, what the heck is this? And there were people like cursing and swearing and stuff. And some people don't like that. That's all, dude. I'm not changing my channel to all of a sudden be like pimping out video games or anything. It was just a fun thing we did one night. So, but, yeah, exactly, David. Porn spammers get banned. Why would you need porn when you get to look at this the whole time anyways, right? So, what's the issue? But thank you everyone so much. I do really appreciate it. I should get to bed. I do have work tomorrow, so. And the roads are probably crappy out here. Blech. Rural Pennsylvania, so it was snowing a lot when I got into work tonight, so. Thank you as always, everyone. Check out my stuff on the Patriot Super Panel tomorrow. Look for me to be putting out regular videos. Check out that description for how to follow me on a bunch of platforms. If you're watching on Facebook, that description isn't there. I've yet to figure out how to put a description on my Facebook videos when they go live, but I guess that's what you get for watching on Facebook. No, I really appreciate it. You guys are all the best. I seriously am humbled that even one person would want to listen to what I have to say. It means a lot to me. It doesn't matter if I grow to get 1 million people watching. It doesn't matter. I appreciate each and every one of you. To the couple of you that sent me videos and links today, I have been a little busy today. I will get to reading and watching that stuff. So please go ahead if you have something to send me. Don't hesitate. Yeah, American Joe and Douglas Dakota, yeah. Yeah, they are good. Doug Dakota, yeah. Oh, talking about guitar. So I'll leave the audio play a little so you guys can keep chatting. I'll put my outro on. But as always, everyone, thank you so much and have a good one.